In general, the engineering education has not evolved enough with times. The attempt with Plaksha is to create a truly world-class, forward-looking university.
Great universities are about building a great community, a great set of faculty, great academic partners, and a great set of people backing the project. Plaksha has all three of them.
This university will provide a world-class interdisciplinary education in science and technology.
Look at the impact the internet and smartphone have had on our lives. The impact of AI and machine learning in times to come is likely to be transformational.
At the end of the day, we are all designing for human beings. We are developing technology for human beings. That is why we are incorporating liberal arts into the curriculum at Plaksha.
At one end, you're doing AI and ML, and then you're looking at ethics and working environment, human psychology.
I think the way we've envisaged Plaksha is it's all about solving for world challenges.
Plaksha is defining a new model of engineering education. The curriculum at Plaksha will involve students to learn new age technologies along with the humanities and social sciences. And all this while also imparting leadership ability and developing their emotional quotient to inspire them to take on big challenges.
Given that we can start from scratch, we pretty much have lots of degrees of freedom.
We are trying to reimagine it in every way possible. Reimagine it in what we teach, how we teach, who we will hire as faculty.
How excited we are to partner with Plaksha. Really think about a new model of engineering education, which is grand challenge focused.
India is going to be at the forefront of engineering education innovation into the future, and in that space, Plaksha is going to play a really key role.
So some of the founders at Plaksha have been involved in building Ashoka University, which within a short span of time has become the torchbearer of a liberal arts education in India. Hopefully, Plaksha will do the same in technology.
I believe that India has world-class students. Our vision is to provide the opportunity to build technological solutions for the future. This is why I'm involved in this project, a university for the future.
We want kids to develop the art of asking why, to develop that curiosity, and then through that fundamental knowledge, be able to build something real. That is the essence of engineering, and that is the essence of the YTS program.
Like drifting through memory, wake up in your crystal sky. We're floating just to feel.
It's very cool because we've never done this stuff. We've only done it in class before, on the board, but we're actually getting to do it. And some things are kind of tough because we're soldering for the first time, but it's still really fun.
Thought I'd be able to see my own pulse by making a machine on my own. We learn everything about this at school, but we never actually see it. And doing that on our own, it's great.
What I really love about this program is that we brought together some very bright kids, some very creative kids with a lot of potential. But what's been exciting is just in a small way, over the course of 2 weeks, to see them start realizing their potential.
YTS curriculum was designed to provide a transformative experience to the kids.
I've loved every part of YTS. I kind of understand now that 55 excited kids who are here just for the love and pure love of science can actually change things and make a difference.
In general, the engineering education has not evolved enough with times. The attempt with Plaksha is to create a truly world-class, forward-looking university.
Great universities are about building a great community, a great set of faculty, great academic partners, and a great set of people backing the project. Plaksha has all three of them.
This university will provide a world-class interdisciplinary education in science and technology.
Look at the impact the internet and smartphone have had on our lives. The impact of AI and machine learning in times to come is likely to be transformational.
At the end of the day, we are all designing for human beings. We are developing technology for human beings. That is why we are incorporating liberal arts into the curriculum at Plaksha.
At one end, you're doing AI and ML, and then you're looking at ethics and working environment, human psychology.
I think the way we've envisaged Plaksha is it's all about solving for world challenges.
Plaksha is defining a new model of engineering education. The curriculum at Plaksha will involve students to learn new age technologies along with the humanities and social sciences. And all this while also imparting leadership ability and developing their emotional quotient to inspire them to take on big challenges.
Given that we can start from scratch, we pretty much have lots of degrees of freedom.
We are trying to reimagine it in every way possible. Reimagine it in what we teach, how we teach, who we will hire as faculty.
How excited we are to partner with Plaksha. Really think about a new model of engineering education, which is grand challenge focused.
India is going to be at the forefront of engineering education innovation into the future, and in that space, Plaksha is going to play a really key role.
So some of the founders at Plaksha have been involved in building Ashoka University, which within a short span of time has become the torchbearer of a liberal arts education in India. Hopefully, Plaksha will do the same in technology.
I believe that India has world-class students. Our vision is to provide the opportunity to build technological solutions for the future. This is why I'm involved in this project, a university for the future.
want kids to develop the art of asking why, to develop that curiosity, and then through that fundamental knowledge, be able to build something real. That is the essence of engineering, and that is the essence of the YTS program.
Like drifting through a memory. Wake up in your crystal sky. We're floating just to feel.
This is very cool because like we've never done this stuff. We've only done it in class before, like on the board, but we're actually getting to do it. And some things are kind of tough because we're like soldering for the first time, but it's still really fun.
Welcome to Infinity, Track 3.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Infinity 2020. My name is Vineet Gupta. I'm one of the founders and trustees of Plaksha University. I've also been a founder and trustee of Ashoka University. And it's been a real pleasure to host Infinity 2020 with you. We are midway through the conference. Plaksha, as some of you know, is an upcoming technology university. Plaksha aims to rewrite the playbook for engineering and technology education in the 21st century, a playbook that will encourage students to be innovative, a playbook that makes engineering education more interdisciplinary, a playbook that creates an ecosystem for innovation and entrepreneurship. We've had some exciting tracks, and I'm just going to get my slide deck up to take you through what track 3 has in store for you. So we are getting into our third track today evening, Tech Leaders for Tomorrow, where we have some outstanding speakers, leaders of today and also potential tech leaders of tomorrow. We have leaders from industry, we have leaders from academia, we have leaders who have become successful entrepreneurs. And then finally, tomorrow we close with some inspiring stories. Yesterday, we did talk about the future of technology education. Today morning, we spoke about how technology can be used to problem solve. And today evening's track takes it a step further with demonstrated success of what technology entrepreneurs and business leaders have done. The first session is by Shalini Kapoor, who is the Director and CTO India for IBM. And I will quickly have Geeta introduce her. After that, we also have some budding entrepreneurs. The Infinity team actually went around the country. We had 160 entries, and we are showcasing about 4 of them today. We then have a very exciting panel of 3 very exciting entrepreneurs. Shrinath actually has started a company that launches rockets, and Geeta and Joe use AI for medical delivery. And the last one, which is again extremely interesting, is by a Silicon Valley entrepreneur who's incubated more than 30 startups in biotech. And he speaks about the $100 trillion biotech opportunity. So don't miss any of these sessions. They all promise to be extremely extremely exciting. So let's get on with the first one, which is being hosted by Geeta Jayant. Welcome, Geeta. Geeta is the principal at Legacy School, Bangalore. As an educator and an instructional leader, Geeta is deeply passionate about inspiring and enabling children to evolve to be well-rounded, compassionate, and successful human beings. Geeta brings with her rich experiences spanning over 20 years across diverse multicultural schools. Geeta has a postgraduate qualification in information technology and a master's qualification in science and English from premier institutes. Geeta has been instrumental in helping us design this conference as well. Welcome, Geeta, and over to you.
Thank you, Vineet, for inviting me and your kind introduction. Infinity 2020 seems to be creating a huge buzz, and my students and friends have been raving about the conference since yesterday, and I'm sure tomorrow also would be a wonderful day. Well, coming to today's session, the first thing which comes to our imaginative mind when we hear the term artificial intelligence is to imagine either a world which depicts a technological utopia, bringing about the end to diseases, poverty, and resource disparity, or on the other hand, an extreme dystopian world where we see the rise of robots, the super intelligent machines, which will outthink the smartest humans and where humanity would be overthrown. Well, today's session will delve deeper into the uses of AI, the fear around AI, and the future of AI. So to throw light on this widely debated topic, I have the pleasure to introduce the keynote speaker for this evening, Shalini Kapoor. Shalini is India's first women IBM Fellow for Artificial Intelligence and is also the Director and CTO for AI Applications India. As an IBM Fellow, Shalini drives research, strategy, and development to maximize the infusion of AI in our everyday lives. Well, personally, as an educator, I have been inspired by her vision to lead transformation to shape the lives of people. With 23 years of experience and 14 patents to her credit, Shalini has worked with global system integrators, ecosystem partners, and academia while incubating several next-gen solutions in the field of Internet of Things and AI. She is a torchbearer of good tech projects in India, focusing on STEM and AI for women and underprivileged while working with schools, universities, government, and industry leaders. So let's hear from Shalini about decoding the IoT and how we adapt and adopt AI into our lives. Without further ado, over to you, Shalini.
Thank you, Geeta. Thank you so much. It was a long, winding introduction, but thank you so much. And thanks, Vineet, for hosting this track and this session. It's really interesting to see the whole agenda for Infinity, and I'm sure the students are going to enjoy and love interacting with so many industry folks and startup folks, and so it's great. It's great from a career perspective. So friends, I'm going to talk about, and let me share my screen, which is my presentation. Are you able to see my presentation? Okay, good. And Geeta, you're able to hear me. Everybody is able to hear me, right? Okay, good. So let's start. So I'm going to talk about the business impact of AI. And of course, there are a lot of things known, unknown about AI. I'm going to talk about that. And then we can get into some question answers. I'm sure students would like to know some more details. So how is the world of AI? How does it look like? Of course, there is a big promise of AI. You would be hearing a lot of stories as to how AI can solve healthcare problems, how AI can solve large problems which are in front of us. And of course AI is being used so much, even when you browse, even when you see Netflix and the recommendation, it's recommending you. When you're using Amazon and it's recommending the next product to you, you're using your phones, and there's so much of AI already being used. So there's big promises of AI. And there are a lot of people who are who are scared, or they think that there is AI is going to take over the humans. And you'll read all those articles which are like scaring you and saying that how things are going to change. And some people think the jobs will go. And others are talking about a lot about science fiction things. Some of it is real, some of it is played up, some of it is not and we'll talk about those those fears. There's a lot of confusion of AI, and as students I'm sure you must be thinking, where do I start from? How do I start? Where do I mean, is artificial intelligence the same as machine learning? Is it same as data science? Is it same as computer science? What do I do if I'm not a computer science person? Then how can I learn AI? And not just that, even as teachers, there are so many teachers, they want to know on AI and they don't know where to start from. So there are a lot of confusion on where to start, how to learn, how to build your skills around AI. And then there is a large segment of people who have to just accept AI, because if they don't adopt AI, and if they are not not in the phase of adoption of AI, they're just going to be left out. And especially large businesses, enterprises, who are if they don't change their processes or start on new processes and they don't accept AI, they'll be left out. So we'll talk about these things. So let's just first see that how AI changes things. So if you see, IBM took a moonshot in 1960s when the first man landed on moon. It was IBM technology, servers and computers and laptops and everything which was the operation center, and which was managing the whole thing. So if ever you guys get to go to Orlando and see the NASA Space Center, there is a full set of exhibits that they have kept, that how IBM computers had kept, was the operation center managing everything, the rocket and everything which was the satellite which got launched. And then there is and now let me just jump off several years, several decades, and come now, where IBM just launched a marine exploration self-autonomous. It's an autonomous ship called Mayflower. It's a Mayflower project, which is tech-enabled. It has got 6 AI cameras, which are going to measure the ocean waves and how the ocean behaves, and how it is going to do marine exploration. And it doesn't have a captain. The captain is AI. AI is the captain of that ship. So that's where we are today, right? And why is this possible? It is possible because there is huge amount of scaling of quantum which has come in place. See, if you see the history of AI, in the history of AI, there was a lot of time. I mean, algorithms and all happened pretty much in 60s. But why is it that there is a major boom on AI and everybody's talking about it now? It is because of certain factors. One is there's huge amount of data available. There was no data. AI is hungry for data. It's like, it didn't gobble up data and then only it can give an answer. That data was not available so many years back, and it is available now. Data in form of text and audios and videos and manuals and social media and everywhere else. There was no data earlier, right? Our systems were not computerized. Now applications are running. We are all literally sitting on huge billions of data. So the data happened, and also what happened along with that was that the hardware industry changed, and the Moore's law was like thrown out, and everything miniaturization happened, and what could be done. In fact, a very interesting thing I heard, where Raj Reddy, who's kind of the father of AI in India, he used to talk about that in 1980 self-driving cars were possible. Self-driving cars from a software perspective were possible, but the only thing was, if a car is going ahead, there would be 6 trucks needed to carry the hardware for it. right? I mean, that was the amount of hardware, size of hardware needed. But today, that hardware is within the car itself, right? Because the miniaturization has happened. The things, the semicon industry and the whole hardware is in such a manner that you can do large processing, huge amount of processing on computers, and quantum is a leap in that space. So I talked to you about a bit about history, about present, which is Mayflower, and then future, where quantum is going to solve molecular and virus related issues for us, and supercomputer can solve those. But then what are the problems which will get solved? I'm sorry. What are the problems which will get solved in future, and what are the problems that you guys should work on, students should work on? And those problems are problems which, like what are mentioned in the UN sustainable development goals, which are related to climate, to health, to nutrition, to the way we do handle wastage. I mean, all those things have to come together. And the AI capabilities like computer vision, speech, audio processing, these technologies will have to advance themselves, develop themselves, and go to a different stage. Now, if you see, these problems cannot be solved only by technology of AI. It needs a very different kind of skill sets, which is social sciences, which is psychology, history, economics. So the whole AI domain can happen only if the technology part moves ahead, as well as the entire interdisciplinary skills related in the related areas are also brought together with AI. So as students, it is very important that you are not just looking at AI as a technology domain. AI is not just a technology domain, it is multidisciplinary, and I'm going to talk more in detail about this. I'm going to talk again and explain to you that why it is interdisciplinary. So IBM comes out with something called as 5 and 5, which is 5 predictions, which is going to change the world in 5 years, and where maximum investments and will happen. So the five predictions that IBM has is that there's going to be a huge amount of work in capturing and transforming carbon dioxide to mitigate climate change. There's a lot of work happening in this space. Producing fertilizers with less environmental impact, rethinking batteries. I mean, we all know that there is so much of electric move towards electrical mobility. So the batteries have whether in our cars, or whether in our scooters, or whether in our phones, or powering our homes, all those, we have to really rethink that what is the technology which is going to reduce. Drug repurposing, because we all know we are in the pandemic area, and how important is to speed up the clinical trial, right? As soon have a vaccine as soon as out as possible. So those kind of huge simulations and huge AI drug discovery can happen only when AI is speeding it up. It is predicting the way a molecule or a virus can infect. It is looking at huge amount of data of people across age, across gender, across race, across countries, and for all that, there's huge amount of technology involved. And of course, the sustainability and making sustainable materials. So it takes 10 to 100 million dollars to invent a new material, right? It takes a lot of resources, and it takes 10 years. It's not that it happens immediately, but technology can make that cycle shorter. It can make it faster, because you're using AI to and AI models can do the predictions whether this thing will react with this or not, or whether what might be the reaction outcomes. So that itself changes it. So if you see these 5 and 5, AI is just invigorating derating it. It is just as an escalator, it's accelerating it. But the problems are, it needs folks in biology, it needs people in, and if you put a AI ethics wrapper around it, it's so much related to behavioral change. It's so much related to the folks that who are doing psychology. It's so much related to economics, because how organizations are investing into it, how it's going to impact society. That's all a very different domain altogether. So AI, big problems in the industry can be solved using AI, but it needs a lot of interdisciplinary skills. Now, I'm going forward to my point on how the transformation through interdisciplinary skills can happen. If you see the use cases of AI are across all the areas. Now, like what I mentioned, that AI data is the most important thing for AI, for it to function or give any intelligent outcome. Domain knowledge is the other, right? Domain. I mean, today, I'm a doctor, and I know how what symptoms of cancer I can detect, and I can understand that. Can AI help me if I feed data into it? So that is my aid. So AI can be an aid to a doctor. AI can be an aid to a lawyer. There are so many legal documents and everything, and I can handle many more cases, and I can cater to many more people. I mean, we all know that how many cases lie pending in our courts for long, right? If you apply AI, then you're accelerating decision making, and you are giving it to many more people. So the whole concept of accelerating, being able to predict the outcomes, automate it, and have trusted responses, right? You cannot just can just have any response. You have to trust the response based on, you have to clean the data, you have to work on the data, you have to be ensured that there is no bias in the data, because if bias in is bias out, you might just put your own existing biases in, into the data. So AI, if you see, it has so many areas: agriculture, supply chain, retail, finance, and I'm sure I would have missed out a couple of them. Agriculture, cyber physical systems. I mean, it's beyond STEM. Health workers, psychologists, anthropologists, lawyers, chartered accountants, fitness experts, they need to understand the implication of AI. So it is highly multidisciplinary. Of course, what you do in AI will depend a lot, right? You could be a data scientist, where, of course, you need to understand math and programming and Python. But there could be data engineers who need not understand math. They could be statisticians who can come from statistics background. They could be designers. In fact, in IBM, we have a big discipline called design for AI. How do you design a system? How do you make our software and make the design which is giving explainability as to of the output of AI? So people coming from design are working so much in AI in our organization. You could be, I mean, we have Watson Health as a business unit, where doctors and clinicians and folks from this background are actually working with programmers and data scientists to build a model for cancer detection. So in everything, it all has to come together, which means that the domain people also needs to know about AI. They don't need to program AI, but they need to know the implications and the use cases, and how to build build the right prediction and intelligent outcomes. I want to give an example. I want to give an example of how we are applying AI, which is like multidisciplinary in nature, right? So like the project debater. Project debater is it's a totally different area. So if you know IBM's history, we do a lot of technology innovations. We had a Deep Blue innovation, and it was the chess, and it was about chess, and how a computer can beat a computerized system can beat a chess champion. And then we launched Jeopardy. Jeopardy was a game about multiple questions coming in and people solving it. That was kind of the birth of Watson and the project debater, and that's really interesting. It is about debating, as simple as that. So it's a system which debates, and in fact it debated with the expert human debater, the Harish Natarajan, who's considered to be the number one debater in the world. And we created a system which could debate on complex topics. The topics were like, is it time to redistribute the wealth, right? So how does an AI system can have a well-structured speech, have clarity, have rebuttal, and it debated with a human system. So it's a lot of technology, but it's, we've kind of put it and made it as an evidence-based arguments, and limiting the influence of emotion, bias, ambiguity. So it's a system that we put together which kind of helps people to understand. So you will find similar kind of examples in the industry, and it will be good for you to you can go and Google on Project Debater. In fact, just 1 week back there was a big debate on Bloomberg TV. Everything is available. You guys can Google it and find out, because these are interesting things to see how technology is being challenged. So I know I'm cognizant of the time, so I'll just talk a little bit about how AI in business is changing. It is predicting and shaping a lot of future outcomes because it's able to automate decisions. And I will talk to you about 4 different patterns which make this happen. The first in businesses, and if you see any business, you can take retail, you can take supply chain, you can take pharmaceuticals, or you can take manufacturing. It would be about discover new process. Maybe, so first, before you apply AI technology, you have to first see which business process are you going to change? What are you going to, affect? Is it a new process, like for example, you're going in a lift. If the lift is moving too much and too heavily, you think, oh, there is something wrong in the lift, right? And but if there was a mechanical engineer inside the lift, he or she can tell that this is not a fault, or this is a fault, or it's going to break, right? So, but the mechanical engineer can always not be in the lift. So there could be a new process which kind of is listening just to the sound of the amount of sound which is being made, and from that it can detect that is it something which can cause a failure in maybe 10 days. So it's a new process. This process was not existing, right? The whole Uber routing map. I mean, I took a business example, but you all guys know that the whole routing mechanism. It's a new process. It's a new process which has come in. So that's a new process in which AI can be infused. You can have old processes that you enter into buildings and you see that every time the electricity bill is, we don't even care what the electricity bill of the building is as users of the building. But there is so much of data available, right? On that data, if you can measure occupancy of people and predict the energy consumption and then reduce the utility bills, that's you have reinvigorated old processes. You can start a new channel like virtual assistant, chatbots. It could be a new channel, or you could just unlock a lot of data which is present in the organization. There could be volumes of data available within the organization, and you can just use that to apply AI. So these are some patterns in which you apply AI in business. You identify the business process, you find where the data is, and then you start. I mean, AI comes later. First is the business process identification, having huge amount of data, and then we get into that. Very quickly, there is a lot of work on fairness, bias mitigation, explaining AI, robustness from attacks. So there's a lot of security work around it. Seeing if the desired behaviors and are observed. So there is a lot of work around this, and I would encourage you to Google about AI fairness and AI bias and AI explainability. In fact, we have a toolkit called AI Explainability 360 toolkit, which has toolkits for. I mean, it can apply to examples like like say insurance, right? In insurance, what if you are giving loans only to a certain set of people because you fed data of 30 to 40-year-old people of a certain sect and or a religion and not the other. So that algorithm will not give a loan to if a 55-year-old lady woman applies for a loan, because it has been fed with only 30 to 40 age group and a certain religion or a certain gender. So you have to mitigate, you have to remove bias in your data, and there's a lot of work, and there's a lot of so we have put a kit out, and it's on open source. You can check it out. So I'll just mention one last example, which is on weather company. The weather.com is actually an IBM company, and it uses huge amount of forecast models, some 150 plus forecast models, and you can imagine the amount of data it is fed, and that's used by airplanes, agriculture, and billions of weather forecast locations are there. And AI is being used, and we didn't even realize that it's forecast models which are helping us. So just one last part, and I'll pause here, that AI skills are extremely important, and we are working with the CBSC because a lot of skills are there at 11th and 12th grade. I know you guys are at undergrad level, and maybe even at postgrad, but now we are imparting skills even at 11th and 12th, and we have made AI into the CBSE curriculum, because that's where you start laying the foundation of AI. And this is AI for all. It is not related. Even commerce, humanities, biology students, or of course STEM students can do it. And we do a lot of projects with them, hands-on projects. So I'll pause here. I know I have less time, but I would want to spend some time in question and answers. And AI for business is a huge area, and I've done a introduction to this and told you that how businesses are adopting. Some businesses are failing, some businesses are doing initial proof of concepts, and there are huge amount of businesses who are successful. So the promise of AI is definitely big, and the fear of AI is being dealt by the AI fairness, the bias, the kits that I talked about, and the confusion of AI. I hope I'm able to tell you that it's extremely interdisciplinary, and if you're wanting to start with AI foundation courses. There are a lot of courses on Coursera. You should do them, and there are even IBM courses on Coursera, and you can find them out. And the businesses are accepting AI. It is there for with all of us here. So I'll pause here. I'll stop sharing, and please feel free. Geeta, over to you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Shalini. What an insightful talk on how AI could be, should not only be treated as a tech domain, but also as a multidisciplinary cognitive domain. So I think that just gives, what Plaksha is all about. So anyway, the Q&A box seems to be flooded with questions. But before I take them on, I just thought I should, everybody would be interested to know more about your journey so far. Be it your love for math and science, which I read somewhere, and your motivation, your key turning points, and your successes, and your initiatives to set a culture of gender sensitization. I think that's been hugely talked about. So if you could just briefly share that before we take about some questions there.
Okay, you have asked me a lot of things, Geeta.
Okay. Free to choose and answer whatever you feel like. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So I started my career. I've done BTech in computer science, and then I have done my master's in information management from SPJN. I've been in the industry for like almost 23 years plus. I started working in understanding. I mean, I love technology. So I started working in understanding industries, how technology can be applied in banking, finance, public sector. So I've worked with a lot of clients. I do a lot of client-facing work where I like building solutions for the clients. And I've spent a lot of years in Internet of Things, and I set up the Internet of Things lab in Bangalore. Internet of Things is also, it was absolutely new field because it was a combination of hardware, software, services, not just a single software. So I spent a lot of years in Internet of Things. I started working in AI only say 3 years back, and because of course the promise of AI kind of pulled me, and now I do a lot of work on supply chain, in supply chain systems, in manufacturing systems, in building management systems, as to how AI can transform things for our clients. I also work a lot on AI skills and transforming my organization for into an AI organization, because people come from their traditional skills, but you have to transform them, you have to make them learn and learn new skills. And I also do a lot of work in the good tech projects, and that's where I worked with AI for CBSE. And I'm very passionate about how AI can be applied in learning and in education, because AI can do wonders for education, because it's a time for personalized learning, it's a time for customized learning for students, and AI can help a lot in understanding a student's profile and personal. I might be an economics student, I might be second year economics, right? So but apart from economics, I need to know say flavor agrarian economics, I need to know psychology, I need to know statistics, right? So there could be a blended learning, and AI can help in creating those paths. So I work in these areas, and if there's something which is left, you can ask me and I can.
Yeah. Thanks, Shalini. So I think I'm picking one question from the Q&A box. It says, if AI is interdisciplinary, does it mean that student needs to have studied certain subjects before they can begin contributing to the field? Could a non-math major possibly help build an AI system?
Yeah, so see, now there are a couple of things happening in the industry. Of course, you will see a lot of AI, masters in AI and masters in or even undergrads in AI, which is happening. But even the folks who have not done if you're not done science in 11th and 12th, right? So you're maybe doing a commerce thing. Of course, you can you can still do that, because like what I said, a legal system, it doesn't need science and maths, right? A legal system has to be built with AI. I have HR people working with me in my organization who are working on AI systems and helping us build the prediction algorithms. So for an HR people, they are people who have done HR are not necessarily coming from science, from STEM backgrounds, designers, right? Like what I mentioned. So of course you can, and I think what you should do is you should do some foundation courses on AI, so that you understand how the applications of AI, you are able to understand what AI achieves. That if you're able to understand, you can work with programmers to together to build a system.
Right. Shali,
but if you want to work on that AI technology, then of course you need to have science and maths. That you want to work on the algorithms for image processing. You want to work on visual analytics, and which is videos, and you're working on that. So if you're doing, you have to work on language processing. Then you need those things, right? So that's how it is.
Well, my next question is for something which is related to students who are wanting to pursue a career in AI. Actually, it also goes back to, I've been watching my 6-year-old nephew who is working with this he's growing up with this interactive technology like Siri, OK Google, or Alexa. And Alexa seems to be the buddy, especially during this, social distancing times. When you see that, and you've started seeing the little ones have stopped distinguishing between what computer and human interaction is all about. So what I see is that this interactivity only growing further. So what advice would you give students preparing for careers in AI development, which focuses on human-centered design?
Yeah, so very good question. So one is a human interaction is extremely important. In fact, we actually sometimes don't call it artificial intelligence. We call it augmented intelligence, because it's actually augmenting what humans are doing. right?
Yeah.
So you augment, you do not you never remove humans from the whole process, because the ultimate decision is the human's decision. And that's when AI stays more powerful, because then it is aiding the humans to do that. And how you interact with the systems, that is also a lot of area, and is also a big design area in itself, right? Like how do you design so that the user is not interrupted in their thought process, right? Or how the behavioral change is coming into people, to introduce AI. So it's a field of a lot of field of work, and that's why we call it augmented intelligence. And we also talk about the behavioral change which people have to do to adopt, so it's AI which has to adopt to people. AI which is done by, say, a space planner person who's saying, I need an AI algorithm to say how to repurpose my office after the pandemic with social distance of 6 feet in distance, right? So there's an algorithm which will work and do the work for you. But how does that algorithm interact with you? How much power it gives to you, or are you just going to blindly follow that? So that is a big area in itself.
Right. Thank you, Shalini. In the interest of time, I know we could have gone on and on with you, just inspiring us. So, with the hope that AI will turn out to be a friend as we move further into the 21st century, one thing seems certain: the world will have to get used to a silicon based intelligence. So, thank you, Shalini, once again, and look forward to you coming again and inspiring children at Plaksha and all the students always. So, thank you again.
Good luck, all of you at Plaksha, and have a great sessions ahead. Thank you, Geeta. Thanks so much for hosting this. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much, Anya, for a fabulous talk, really breaking down this complex topic for all of our understanding and helping us see what the future would look like. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much, Geeta ma'am, for being an absolutely wonderful moderator for this session.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. In the run up to the next session, we have a poll on the screen for the audience. The question is, which of these grand challenges are you most passionate about solving? It's a multiple choice. You can pick as many as you like. We'll give you 30 seconds. We'd also ask this question in the morning. I think some of you may be attending again and some would be fresh. We'd love to get a peek into your mind. Okay, great. We have the results here. Maximum people have voted for quality education for all. I guess we have a biased audience. We got the same response in the morning as well, but this is very good news for us. I think everybody in the audience, everyone here is very well aligned to the same mission. We're all on the same path. Thanks a lot for sharing your responses. With that, we'll move on to the next session. It's called What's Your Idea?, where high school students will pitch startup ideas to us. To host this session, I call upon our colleague Susovan, who is part of the Plaksha team and plays a key role in outreach and admissions. Over to you, Susovan.
Thank you, Pallavi. What's Your Idea is a platform for entrepreneurial high schoolers to create and share their solutions to the grand challenges of today. We launched the contest about 3 weeks ago and received an overwhelming response from high schoolers across the country. 150 plus pitches from 300 plus high schoolers coming from more than 30 cities. As Vineet said earlier, we literally went around the country for this. We then had Remy Oberoi, the CEO and director of Oyster Connect, teach the participants the science behind pitching an idea over 2 engaging sessions. Following this, the top 10 ideas were pitched in front of our jury, who then helped us find the 3 most fascinating ideas from the pool. As someone who has been a part of the entire process, I was pleasantly surprised by the sheer enthusiasm shown by the young innovators toward building solutions to some of the most exciting challenges of today. In this session, we have teams present the top 3 ideas to us. This is a celebration of all the effort that these teams have put into creating these wonderful solutions. Before we move on, I would like to introduce our high-powered jury that was instrumental in giving the teams valuable feedback and supporting this initiative right from the beginning. We have Mr. Alok Mittal and Dr. Ritesh Malik. Mr. Alok Mittal is the co-founder and CEO of IndiaRTI Technologies, which is a platform to expand access to debt financing for Indian SMEs. A successful first-generation entrepreneur based in India, Alok is a founding member of the Indian Angel Network, which is a forum for making angel investments. He last led the India operations of Kanaan Partners, a premier US-based venture capital firm. Alok is a computer science graduate from IIT Delhi and completed his MS in Management of Technology programs from UC Berkeley. Next, we have Dr. Ritesh Malik, the founder and CEO of Innovate Co-working. A medical doctor turned serial entrepreneur and investor, Ritesh has experience across diverse sectors like healthcare, information technology, management, entrepreneurship, angel investments, social entrepreneurship, and innovation. He has been listed on the Forbes 30 under 30, Fortune 40 under 40, and is an active investor in more than 25 startups. Ritesh is also the founder and CEO of Guerrilla Ventures, an angel fund that was founded in 2013 with a focus on hardware companies. Both Alok and Ritesh are founders at Plaksha University. Thank you so much, Alok and Ritesh, for taking time out and being with us today. We now invite the three teams to come up and present their ideas one by one through a short 3-minute elevator pitch. Post that, we'll invite Alok and Ritesh to share their advice for the entrepreneurs of tomorrow. Before getting into this, I would like to first thank Alok and Ritesh again for taking time out and joining us. And then we'll begin with our first team. The idea is called IndiaRTI, inviting Adi Krishna on screen. Adi, over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here today. Many believe the RTI Act was the most momentous and reformative act in Indian history. Do you know, since 2005, over 40 million RTIs have been filed, but less than 0.01% are in the public domain? Good evening. My name is Adi Krishna, and I'm the founder of IndiaRTI. And tech enables social enterprise for government transparency. Using AI, IndiaRTI intends to build the first comprehensive repository and wiki-style pages for RTIs in India. The RTI Act was passed in 2005. Since then, over 40 million RTIs have been filed with a CAGR of 36% and a current rate of 6.5 million per year. However, the full benefits of the Landmark Act have not been realized by the common citizen. This is due to two main reasons. Number one, less than 0.01% of the RTIs are in the public domain. Number two, a high rate of duplicate and follow-up requests because processes are very cumbersome. The implication of this, most of the common citizens have been left untouched by the virtues of this act. So what is our solution? An AI-based first ever comprehensive and holistic repository of RTIs. We want to focus on the 99.99% hidden RTIs and increase the number of publicly available RTIs from 0.01% to 10% in just 2 years, a 1000x increase. Our solution has three key features. Number one, search and download of RTIs filed to date. Number two, AI-generated wiki-style pages of information collated from various RTIs. Number three, custom reports with in-depth analysis. The product will be a progressive web app accessible through various devices. AI is integral to what we do. We have over 40 million records to be collated, sorted, correlated, and stored. Our wiki-style pages will be auto-generated and auto-updated using AI. So how will we build the database? Three ways. We are collating few RTIs available on various ministry sites. Number two, through partnerships with central and state chief information commissioners. I'm happy to report that an information commission that is the largest contributor of RTIs has in principle agreed to work with us. Number 3, we will crowdsource the remaining RTIs. 450 million plus voters and information seekers are our primary customer segment. RTI filers and responders make up the sub-segments. As for pricing, we intend to follow a freemium model. We should break even in about 2 years with 2,500 subscribers. With the passion for social entrepreneurship, I've been working on this idea for over a year. I've done extensive market research, including interviews with government officials, responders, and filers. They all love the idea. They thought it solves a major problem and is a win-win for all stakeholders. Mr. Raghav Chandra, an accomplished retired IAS officer, is the co-founder. 2 professors from IIT Delhi are advisors, and we have other experienced professionals and undergraduates from top universities helping us. We are starting to do fundraising, and I hope you will join us in our mission to contribute towards nation building using the best of AI. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adi. That is really interesting. Amazing to see how you've identified and solved for a critical part of what makes our democracy stronger. Next up is Team TechPal. Team TechPal, the stage is yours. Take it from here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before I share our business plan with you, let me take you through a story. Meet my Dadi. She's an independent woman and probably has more friends than me. But this digitalized era has left her lonely, restricted, and helpless since she feels challenged carrying out any digital tasks such as texting her friends or even ordering medicines. She even feels insecure in seeking our help at times. It was when we realized that there are thousands of senior citizens just like her who feel isolated and helpless due to the change in the digitalized world. We at TechPal provide personalized services to teach user interface technology to the elderly right at their doorstep. Senior citizens, especially the ones living alone, find it very hard to do basic digital tasks and feel isolated in the world which is connected via technology. They have to take the burden of going out and getting groceries in crowded places, physically book cabs, etc., when all of this can be done simply from the comfort of their homes.
At TechPal, we believe that the elderly can get comfortable with technology with our personalized one-on-one sessions conducted in the comfort of their homes at their convenience and pace. We have 3 course-specific packages: Junior Pal, Senior Pal, and Pro Pal. Junior Pal is the first level of learning that teaches you how to navigate across your device and perform simple tasks like saving contacts, taking pictures, and using WhatsApp. Senior Pal is a slightly advanced course for those who already know their basics. Users will be taught how to operate applications, to place orders online, and make payments. And lastly, with ProPal, users can personalize their plan and choose specific applications or programs of their choice.
Nothing like TechPal exists in the market today, apart from a few NGOs such as HelpAge India and Digital Eagle. YouTube, which has a vast array of videos, isn't too helpful to begin with, considering it's already on a digital platform. We will promote our services through posters, flyers, and free introductory sessions in society community centers and RWAs, and subsequently rely on the word of mouth. Potential customers can contact us directly via our helpline number and the TechPal app. Social media will be an indirect source of first contact by relatives or friends of our customers.
We have trained 127 volunteers across Delhi NCR, and now our aim is to acquire customers through aggressive marketing and promotion. The population of senior citizens in Delhi is 12 lakhs, out of which 7 lakhs still have access to smartphones. As per our market survey, as the word spreads, we should have customers worth more than 2 lakhs and a growth rate of 10 times. Our marketing expenditure will be high in the beginning, but operating expenses would be low since we are a volunteer-based enterprise. There's a steady initial loss, but eventually we do expect high growth. Execution was physically difficult during this pandemic, so our volunteers conducted test sessions in their neighborhood and identified possible challenges that we may face. Solutions for the same were worked upon subsequently. Here's a testimonial Here's a testimonial from one of our customers.
During the lockdown, my TechPal Mannat taught me how to use YouTube, and as a result, I've been able to spend my time very usefully, as I'm able to watch more of YouTube and find a lot of interesting things on that, and have a great time rather than getting bored.
At TechPal, we believe that we have a simple idea, but it has the power to make a much needed and drastic change.
Thank you, Team TechPal. Having served as tech support for my parents and grandparents myself, I totally see the need for this service. Thank you, Team TechPal again. Now inviting our final idea for the day, Arsh Banerjee, pitching Parayanam. Arsh, over to you.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me here, first of all. A very good evening to everyone. Now, just before introducing myself and my project to you, I want you to know that my project would be completely based on a social entrepreneurial idea and not a profit-making business. With this social venture, I am targeting two big issues directly and indirectly. Firstly, the unemployment of the old age, which has been revolving around even before the pandemic and has come to a rise due to the COVID situation. The disheartening part is that the old age are being targeted the most due to the efficiency they provide. The other problem that we'll be targeting indirectly is the lack of guidance and motivation amongst the general public. So the first part of the question is how I identified this problem. I could only identify it because of a simple conversation with my mom's friend's dad, who recently passed away. He told me that he didn't enjoy what he was doing, and that is sitting idle. And hence comes the question, why do I want to solve it? Simply because I never want to ask myself these three questions again, and especially the third one. So the solution to these problems is just one, and that is help them record their stories through audiobooks. It's simple, producing and supplying audiobooks. We will employ the elderly from old age homes, record their life stories, supply to the target audience, and pay back the old age homes. This has three major benefits. The elderly gets money for doing their jobs. They would attain the will and the sense of purpose of their lives. And third, people suffering from lack of motivation would be able to access real life stories and different types of series, such as life regrets and how to deal with them. This would be really beneficial and influential for the youth of today. Now, I have divided my project into 4 phases. In the first phase, our team would travel to old age homes to research about the suitable employees. And once identified, we will agree a short-term contract with them. In phase 2, we will prepare proper scripts which would be directly read by the employees. After this, the speeches will be edited and refined for the final product. In phase 3, as soon as the audiobooks are ready, they will be put up on sale on different online platforms such as NGO websites and promoted on radios, newspapers, etc. In the final phase, the money collected would be distributed to the NGO for food and shelter, while the individual employees get their remuneration. Now, talking about the financials and growth, we would be estimating around 50 audiobooks a year with some minimal expenses. However, expanded to a larger scale, we will be estimating around 500 audiobooks a year with an expansion to other countries such as Japan and China. And this is how I will answer all the 3 questions that I asked myself in the beginning. Thank you and have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you so much, Arsh. Really, really interesting idea. I was thoroughly inspired just by listening to the teams present their ideas. I hope everyone else also had a similar experience here. Now, I would like to invite Alok and Ritesh to share their thoughts about the ideas that the teams presented today and essentially give us a sneak peek into what kind of advice would they want to give to aspiring job creators in the audience. Our audience is primarily composed of high schoolers. So any comments there? Ritesh, would you like to go first?
Great. So first of all, extremely inspired by what these young kids have actually done. In my wildest of imaginations, I had never thought that I would be a witness to those 10 amazing presentations. And I think that one of the things which I always regret in my life is the fact that I did not start early. I started my first venture, or at least thinking about my first venture, when I was 23, while pursuing my medical education. So I realized that starting early is one of the most crucial elements of adopting in this lifestyle of being an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur is not just about starting a business. It is about accepting change. It is about the fact that you accept something called evolution. From where you start to where you end, you have no clue. But the whole idea about the fact which Robert Frost rightly says, that in the woods there were two roads that emerged, and I took the one less traveled, and that has made all the difference. I think today, 2020, this is the time when we need to build products by Bharat, for Bharat and the world. And I feel that we are poised with the kind of talent. I totally believe that we are a genetic gold mine when it comes to our genetic makeup. And the only thing is that till 2020, the only challenge that happened with our country was our education system was extremely fragmented, because of which we were not able to create a lot of thinkers, and in terms of the confidence building, that was not happening at the apt time. So I truly believe what I witnessed, especially with RTI, the RTI idea, with all the ideas that these kids have presented, is phenomenal. Irrespective of the outcome, my only submission to all of you is that continuously challenge yourself, continuously think of building products for India, and make sure that you develop a Venn of three continuous circles, one being skill, which is very important. But from these is, I think that you also need something called values. Build the technology for the right reasons, for the right challenges, to solve problems of people who are truly underprivileged. And the third wheel being the attitude, making sure that you actually have an attitude where you do not quit, irrespective of the short-term flaws or failures. And acceptance of failure as a term in your life is so important. Again, our education system really makes us feel completely disheartened by the word failure. I actually failed math in my 7th class, and I realized that the whole society looks down upon you. So this event and is honestly speaking, this event is nothing but the idea behind this Infinity conference at Plaksha is just to make sure that you have the ability to understand that there's so much that can be done with our country, and you are the future of this bright country. And I think our country is in safe hands with the kind of presentations that we witnessed today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ritesh. Alok, would you want to go next, please?
Absolutely. So first of all, big congratulations to the top 3 teams. This was a very keenly competed event. So you guys have clearly risen to the top on that. But also congratulations to all the other teams that participated. I think uniformly, the quality of ideas was great. It was great to see real ideas coming from such young students. And that just communicates to me the level of awareness that you have of real problems out there. These were not just ideas that you will put on your college application. And that was nice to see. Also, the range of ideas that we saw was fascinating, right? So it was not all from one area. We had the social part of it. We had elderly care part of it. So very different kind of ideas that we got to see. The genesis of innovation is really in being able to spot market gaps, right? And it is that deep sense of dissatisfaction with the status quo, right? It's almost that when you see a problem, you feel personal pain in just seeing that problem and you want to solve that. And these ideas that you have presented may or may not even be the ones that you pursue over the next many months or years, right? However, the spirit of curiosity that you've demonstrated and that of innovation, that will continue to lead your journeys. So you must kindle this fire, right? Regardless of what idea you pursue, or even whether you pursue entrepreneurship or not, right? This is the fire that'll keep lighting your road forward. We are all learners ourselves even today, but if I had to put out three words of advice, right? First, look for problems around you, right? Be extremely contextual. You must understand the problem deeper than anyone else, who you're competing with, right? So don't go and try to look for problems 10,000 miles away, right? There are enough problems that we have, and you guys have already demonstrated that you have the ability to go study those problems, understand the root cause of that, right? So look at what is missing in your school, look at what is missing in your apartment building, in the music or Netflix service that you use, what are the two features you would like to add, right? Just look around yourself and you will understand those problems very, very deeply. Two, tinker shamelessly, right? There's a famous saying that what I cannot create, I cannot understand, right? And so open up your old phone, see what's inside that, fix that light bulb, right? There is enough tinkering opportunities in our homes. And once you develop that culture of tinkering within yourself, you will continue to do that on a lifelong basis. And three, and Ritesh mentioned this, you'll learn from every setback. Every failure makes your next idea that much more robust, right? So failure is not something that you take and get discouraged by. Failure is something that you take and learn from, and it is part and parcel of our entrepreneurial journeys. So above all the very best. We will look forward to continuing to interact with you in your journeys forward and in our own journey at Plaksha going forward. All the very best.
I have a couple of more questions since we have time, so I'll just go ahead and ask. Ritesh, you mentioned about failure, and I know that you innovate is not really your first venture, and I know for a fact that while you were in your college, you tried something out, then you did something else that was acquired, then innovate happened. How has that journey been for you, and where do you place? How important do you think failure has been in that journey?
There is a beautiful acronym for FAIL, which stands for first attempt in learning. I truly believe that the whole idea behind entrepreneurship is you just keep on trying. The word, and because I'm a student of biology, I love what Charles Darwin says. He says that it will not be the largest or the fastest that will survive. It will be the one who adapts to change most quickly that will survive. I believe what Alok sir rightly said while Alok sir was saying, I was just making a couple of notes. He said a very, very apt thing. And he said that the whole idea is that you need to accept failure in ways unimaginable. The best people in the room are the ones who continuously learn and fail forward. Success is nothing but failure turned inside out. I usually do not talk about a lot of failures that I've had, but there have been so many companies that I had started, and all of them, I also at one point in time started a competitor to Oyo Rooms called Woostays. Massive failure. I had started, so how we started augmented reality was that we thought that doctors are amazingly pressed when it comes to operation theaters. And we thought that let's use augmented reality way back in 2012 to actually solve these problems where doctors in the villages are guided by doctors from great colleges and institutes like Apollo in cities to actually perform deep surgeries, which usually in villages are not performed. But we realized that and the reason that we failed was very extrinsic to our product. The first reason was that 3G was not available in villages back in 2012. And the second reason was that no one wanted to fund this. No government wanted. So failure also teaches you a holistic perspective about the country. So from that, the only thing that you need to do with failure is you can't fail twice on the same problem. The reason is that, and if you are failing twice on the same problem, that means that you have not learned from that mistake. And the last thing that I would like to say about failure is that it's all right to fail. Like the first lesson in entrepreneurship is that you should go out with no expectations, neither from yourself nor from your product, and fail as much as you can. And the only way to fail is to actually stop the procrastination syndrome, where you continuously try to make your product better, but you do not expose your product to the world. The best feedback which will come to you will be from your customers. We realize, and this is a problem with me, when we started Innovate it, I almost spent 3 months before or launching the product from the time that I should have launched. The only reason was I wanted to be completely sure that my product is loved by everyone. And I realized that will never happen. What you think about the product is just your intrinsic mindset. You need to expose your product to your consumers and your customers both. Take feedback, continuously talk to your customers as what you're doing right now. The moment you build your MVP, your minimum viable product, just focus on talking to your customers and just take this product, half baked product, just take this product to the first set of people, and they will give you, because as Indians, we have this amazing habit of criticizing people. We love criticism. Like, I still remember when we started our first Innovate campus, my best friend came and he said, "Pagal ho gaya yaar, why will someone come and work at your office? Unke paas apne offices nahi hai kya?" So, and I realized that this is also a constructive feedback. So take every feedback and improvise every day, and compounding plays magic. I'm in love with the term called compounding. 1% improvement in yourself or in your product each day leads to 365% improvement. But this is not 365 because of the days, but on every day you actually compound that growth, and it becomes a massive value out of that. If you have 100 crores today, after 20 years, if you just don't do anything and just put it on an FD, you will be having close to 1400 crores. That's the magic of compounding. So the whole idea is that do not waste time, continuously improvise your product on a daily basis.
I think also, the impact of how you view failures is not just once the failure has happened. Right? You can always rationalize failure later, right? The real impact of how you perceive failure is before it happens. Because if you've gotten comfortable with the notion that failures will happen, it makes you fearless. It makes you attempt problems that you will otherwise not even go after, right? So this notion of attitude towards failure is not a post facto attitude, right? It is how you approach problems, ideas, entrepreneurship, and risks.
Thank you, Alok. Thank you, Ritesh. One final question for Alok. Alok, you mentioned about finding problems closer to home. We all know now that you studied abroad, but you came back and you started your company here. And you've been here for a while now, and you've been investing as well. So how has that experience been in terms of finding a problem closer to home? If you were to expand.
Yeah, so my reason for coming back here was not necessarily to find a problem closer to home. I thought the solution context, right, my immediate surroundings, which I understood better, would help me in creating whatever I wanted to create. I think this notion of looking for problems around ourselves is something that has become part of my conviction. As I have built my companies, but also as I have backed entrepreneurs who've done the same thing. And I think very often the difference between the success and failure for the same idea, right? The multiple people will have the same idea at the same point in time. Very often that difference is, what is your point of view on the problem, right? Do you understand the problem, better than anything else? We have this notion of 5 whys and, what is the root cause of the problem? And it's very hard to do that by reading a PowerPoint or a secondary research done by someone, right? The second is conviction in the problem. Right? If problems are around you, no one can tell you that is not a problem, right? So, Ritesh's friend might have gone to him and told him people have their own offices, but as long as Ritesh is in touch with customers day on day who are saying, guys, I need a place to work, someone can't steal away your conviction from there. And that is what makes you last through any entrepreneurial journey, which has its own ups and downs, right? So yeah, this is something that I believe in deeply. Both for myself, but also for the entrepreneurs that I back.
Thank you so much, Ritesh and Alok. Lovely having you here today. Congratulating our teams again. Our teams will be leaving behind their contact details in the chat. If anyone from the audience wants to get in touch with them later, please feel free to get in touch. They would love to have a conversation. That's what I've been told. So yeah, ending with this, Pallavi, over to you.
Thank you so much, Susovan. Indeed, it was incredible to hear these powerful pitches by students who are this young. You were all just simply mind-blowing. And I completely concur with Ritesh that after seeing these pitches, we feel that our future is in safe hands. Alok and Ritesh, thank you for forming a fantastic jury and guiding the students to refine their ideas. Thanks, Susovan, for putting this entire effort together and creating this platform for the students. With that, we move on to our next session, which is called Trailblazing Tech Startups of Today. For this session, we have three illustrious tech entrepreneurs as panelists. First is Dr. Geeta Manjunath, who is the founder, CTO, and CEO of Niramai, which is a startup developing a novel software to detect breast cancer at a much earlier stage than traditional methods or self-examination. Geeta has won many international and national recognitions for her work. Previously, she was a lab director heading data analytics research in Xerox India and a principal research scientist at HP Laboratories. She studied at ISC and Kellogg School of Management. Welcome, Geeta. Our second panelist is Joe Agarwal, who is the founder and CEO of Visa, which is an emotionally sensitive AI chatbot for mental health that has already saved many lives and is used by over 1 million people from 30 countries. She was previously the MD of Pearson Learning and has studied at IIT Delhi and IIM Lucknow. Thirdly, we have Srinath Ravichandran, who is the co-founder and CEO of Agnikul Cosmos, which is a very unique startup that is building an orbital class launch vehicle that takes 100 kgs to orbit. His work is literally rocket science. He studied at Columbia University and UIUC. Finally, the host for this session is a very illustrious person himself, Srikanth Velamakani, who is the co-founder, group chief executive, and vice chairman of Fractal Analytics. Fractal is one of the leading players in AI and digital transformation. Under his leadership, Fractal has developed several product lines within the company, including Cuddle.ai, Eugenie.ai, and Cure.ai. His passion for AI and analytics has made him a thought leader in this space and an admired public speaker. Srikanth is also a founder and trustee of the upcoming Plaksha University. He studied at IIT Delhi and IIM Ahmedabad. Thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today. Over to you, Srikanth, to commence the session.
Thank you, Pallavi. And I'd like to first welcome our distinguished panel here. I'm really excited about this conversation and for this wonderful audience that we have here. One of the most inspirational quotes I've ever heard in my life about entrepreneurship comes from a rare 1995 interview by Steve Jobs, where he says, I'm going to paraphrase. It's sort of a longish statement, but I'll paraphrase that. And he says, you tend to get told by well-meaning people that the world is the way it is, and that you should live inside that box and not bash into the walls too much. And that this is a very limited view of life. Life can be much broader once you discover this simple fact, that everything around you that you call life was made by people that were no smarter than you, and that you can change it, you can influence it, and you can build your own things. The minute you understand that you can poke life and actually something will pop out of the other side when you do it, that you can change it and you can mold it, you'll never be the same again. You'll want to change life and make it better. So with that, here I would like to get these three entrepreneurs who are actually doing that. They're doing a wonderful job of changing the world. So first I may ask Joe, Srinath, and then Geeta in that order to just introduce themselves and just in a minute or two and tell us what they do in their business. Joe?
Hi, thanks so much. In fact, the quote you just mentioned was also the quote that inspired me to be an entrepreneur. So it's really strange to hear you talk about it. In my background, I'll just go back a little bit that I joined IIT thinking that I'll be solving big problems, doing exactly what I'm doing today. But it took me a good 20 years to get there. I think I'm hoping Plaksha is one of those places which will make the short circuit journey where the tech education will help us get there much faster. But what I do right now is I try to solve for mental health. It came out of my own journey with struggling with founder depression, struggling with failure as a founder, which you heard about in the last session, and my own depression, and figuring out that the way I would really like to be able to be heard rather than told what I should do when I'm in depression, and created an AI platform that does empathy better than humans, most humans around us, and is actually able to help you feel heard and guide you out of it. About 80 people have written to us to say that it saved their life so far. 2.5 million people have used it. It is prescribed by the National Health Service in the UK, by hospitals in the US, used by the government of India. So it's and by the government of Singapore as well. So it's something that is changing lives every day. Still a very small company, about less than 50 people. Yeah, that's what I do.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joe. Srinath, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to this panel. Yes, I actually have a sort of a similar story like Joe, in the sense it took me a while to figure out what I want to do. It took me a good 10 years and 3 career changes before I actually landed up with building a rocket. I mean, I actually always wanted to do aerospace, but when I first wanted to do it, this was back in 2000, which is when I had the first choice to make take a program in aerospace engineering. I was advised against it by almost everyone I knew, that because jobs are not going to be easy to find. That's where it started. And but after that, I took something I really liked in electronics engineering. But after that, did a little bit in finance, because electronics was not really my cup of tea. But at the same time, I was intrigued by people doing something in finance. And then I quickly realized, no, I'm actually only an engineer at heart. So came back to aerospace engineering, did a master's program in that, and reached out to a lot of profs in India who could probably be help you by being an academic partner in the journey of building a rocket. So that is what we do today. I found a prof like that, and he is from IIT Madras. Once he was on board, we immediately start out, and I quit my job, came back to Chennai, and we started this company called Agnikul, where we are building really small rockets that take small satellites to space. So the idea here is, just like everything in electronics has, changed and become smaller, satellites have also shrunk. You can hold a satellite which is this big now, and that's fully operational. But rockets are still massive. You can put thousands of them in one go. So we thought, hey, the whole point of a rocket is to take a satellite to space. So why not build a small rocket? That's how it started, and that's what we're doing today. Again, a small team, about 60 people, raised a couple of rounds of funding. We still have a long ways to go, at least in terms of being a successful rocket company, attempting our first launch probably in 2022 middle. That's what we're looking at for a first orbital launch. But yeah, that's my story, and that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Srinath. Geeta, Dr. Geeta. You're on mute, Dr. Geeta.
Sorry. So I just said, glad to be part of this forum, and wonderful, smart, upcoming engineers and scientists and innovators that we are addressing. I'm actually an accidental entrepreneur. I was well settled nicely, as you heard, I was a lab director at Xerox Research, solving really wonderful problems for the world. And I had a wonderful team to work with me, smarter than me. And I was innovating, along with the team, developing new stuff, 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, how can, big organizations like HP and Xerox make change the world? And, you had all the cushion and so on. Suddenly one fine day, I said, I'm going to quit this job and do my startup. And that was because I felt very deeply for this huge number of women who are dying because of breast cancer. And today, if you look at breast cancer screening methodology, the only test that's available for detecting breast cancer is called mammography and uses X-rays. And we know X-rays cause radiation, and radiation is not so great for cancer or actually it can increase the risk to cancer. So once I figured that out, and then another big fact is that almost half of the ladies getting breast cancer today are under 50 years, 20s and 30s and 40s, and there is no test which can accurately detect early stage breast cancer in women under 45 years of age. Around the world, there is no test. So, so we said, okay, that's when I said, okay, why don't we start working on this problem? And in fact, I had one of my cousin's sister, I lost her, she was just around 40. And I saw a few other friends having the similar problem. I said, okay, what is the use of sort of technology which does not really solve a real important problem on the ground? And so quit my job, started IndiaRTI. So here at IndiaRTI, we have developed a completely new way of detecting breast cancer. It works for women of all age groups, including a 17-year-old unfortunate girl who had cancer. We were able to detect. And a 92-year-old actually walked into a camp and she was safe. This whole no age bar, that kind of a thing. And the second biggest thing that the tool does, it is absolutely no radiation. We just measure the temperature variations on the chest and measure these temperature differences with a high accuracy, high resolution, and analyze using machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms to generate a report completely automatically. And so, it has much better accuracy in younger women, no radiation, and most of all, it is absolutely no see, no touch. Nobody sees the person or touches the person, which is very important for breast screening, as you all imagine. So, so it's a very novel technology that we have developed. We have 10 granted US patents, and we are the only Indian startup listed on the top 100 AI startup in the world. So we are very, very, passionate to save lives with technology, and so glad to be here to share our story.
Thank you, Dr. Geeta. I mean, every superhero has an origin story, and it's great to hear the 3 origin stories of the 3 superheroes here. That's wonderful. One of the things that strikes me about all 3 of your businesses is that there's a deep sense of purpose, not just profit, but deep sense of purpose behind these companies. I mean, tackling mental health, sending orbital class rockets, or building breast cancer diagnostics. I mean, these are amazing ideas with deep sense of purpose behind them. I'm just wondering, when you have such an idea, first of all, I mean, glad that you shared some of what inspired you to come up with these. Great to hear that. I just wonder, when you have such purposeful ideas, does it make it easy to attract the right kind of talent, or do you have to still struggle? What? Just give me some sense of, does it become easy to build a business when you have so much passion, or is just as difficult as it's for everyone else?
Can I go?
Yeah, please.
So for us, Wiser is this AI chatbot, right? So most of the people who applied to us in the early days had used Wiser, and all the senior people who work with Wiser, like folks with 10 years experience, folks we could not have afforded to come on to Wiser, came in and worked for us for free for a year, just because they wanted to be a part of this purpose. Many came in, worked for 3 months, and realized they're not a good fit and walked away. But of the team that joined us till date in 4 years, we have not had a single person who has left who we didn't want to leave. And the reason is nothing about some, of course, company culture, etc. But the main thing is that on our Slack channel, there is a direct feed from Google reviews. And every day, 50 people who are using Wiser say how it's changing their life. Every day, every employee gets a feed that says, oh my God, you guys have just changed my life. Thank you. I didn't know what to do. I wouldn't be alive without you, etc. It's very hard to leave that. I mean, other companies find it very hard to attract talent that gets addicted to that.
Got it. Srinath, maybe?
Yeah, sure. So I think passion helps in multiple things, right? Starting from hiring to just being with the highs and lows of what it means to be a founder. To just not taking failures too seriously. So absolutely, I think at some level, a lot of children when they're very young dream of being an astronaut, right? So there is this space dream that comes in very young, very early on to a lot of children, and then over the period of time, I think they unlearned to dream, at least given the way things are today. And that's what I hope, institutions like Plaksha would actually change. But the point is, we actually try to go back and rekindle some of that. There is this person who really wants to do something, and today technology is there where you can actually build on top of it and even make space more reachable. And to communicate that, right, you should actually feel it in yourself. Otherwise, I think, first of all, we would not be able to communicate that honestly to someone. And that was definitely a reason why at least me and my other co-founder, both of us actually quit well-paying jobs and then came into this. But beyond that, where the passion has helped is when you go for fundraising and when you get 100 no's for one yes, right? That definitely helps. For the 99 no's, you need to have the grit to say, okay, you know what, that's okay, we'll continue going. And then we play with hardware, and hardware doesn't work. That's the norm, right? It very rarely works, but mostly when you're doing R&D, it doesn't work. So again, 100 bad days for one good day. So all of that is possible, I think, only because of passion. And it's interesting, people come in with the shine of building a rocket. There is some, I don't know, I only realized it recently, because people come in with I don't know whether they see it in movies or something, and then they quickly realize it's a lot of dirty work, hard work, not the most exciting work that you can talk about your friends and so on. And so there is this low, and then people who survive that actually get a super high from once they start understanding what this is really about. Then I see productivity, I see passion coming from them as well. So yes, I don't think any of this is possible without that level of connection and passion to the vision itself.
Dr. Geeta, maybe I'll ask you a slightly different question. The mission and the ambition of the companies that you found and the others in this group have founded is just incredible, right? It'll take a lifetime to accomplish some of the things that you're trying to accomplish. At the same time, you have accomplished the most difficult part of the journey, which is 0 to 1, which is the hardest part for most people here who are probably listening in, are thinking whether can I quit and start a job? How will I, how do I do the first few things, like get from, like for example, build a team, raise some money, or how do I fine tune the idea? I have some semblance of what the idea is. How do I validate the timing of it? Because I mean, a lot of research says that, the most important thing about getting something right is the timing of the idea. Unless the timing is right, all the other things don't really add up to success. So anything that you can share about your journey and lessons that others can take away from here?
Sure, let me try to, because in short, I'll summarize the learnings. I have worked in industry like in HP, Xerox, and all for about 20 plus years. And then last 3.5 years is entrepreneurship. If I sort of kind of in some way quantify the learning I did in 20 years is not even 1/10 of what I've learned in the last 3 years. It's amazing learning experience. And because, you don't know swimming, at least this is my first startup as such, though, we have built products and new products and all that. So you're just jumping into the ocean saying that I'm going to swim to the other side. I don't know what may come. I don't care. I'm just going to swim. That's the foolish thing you just jump into. Then you figure out how to go there. So, but just to sort of make it more tangible, the first thing was we quit. In fact, 2 of my tech team members also joined in. So 3 of us had actually built the algorithms and so on. And also one of my product managers, Nidhi, as well came in. So when we quit, some of the work that we had done was actually sort of part of the, we had done day and night ourselves, but we had done under the umbrella of my previous organization. So the first challenge was that how do I use the same code, same ideas outside, right? That's kind of an IP kind of an issue. So we had all the agreements. So we had to raise a big chunk of money to make sure we could use our own ideas, our own code into the startup, right? So Anna had like 90 days time, 3 months to raise a huge amount of money. And I had never pitched in front of an investor. So Thankfully, of course, we know how to describe, our ideas and what we want to do in life and how we think we have a sort of reasonable solution to solve it. Srinath mentioned, the passion shows, right? And also some things that we have done in life kind of, comes in. And then thankfully, we did find two investors who were ready to immediately pitch in. And so within a month, we had the term sheet. It was grilling, as the previous speakers mentioned. There are lots of no's. More than no, it's not like your idea is bad. It's not never that way. It's really like, what is the answer for this? Like, how can you go? And there's this huge mammography which has been used for 35 years, used all over the world. Doctors study it. There are courses which just teach mammography. There are hundreds and thousands of radiographers. And you come here and say that you're going to disrupt that. You have another technology which is going to sort of, put that aside. It can be better than something that thousands of people, millions of people have gone through the test and sort of read about it, invented, over-invented, or whatever, right? Refined. And so that's the sort of the, like, how can you do it? So the first part is about, yes, I can do it. And these are the reasons why, you need to trust me, right? So that piece, the level of trust varies for sort of, different investors. So that was the first big challenge. Thankfully, because we did have some innovative ideas when we had started filing patents as well at that time. And we did have a small POC, sort of people started believing, in this. And also, it is really a socially relevant problem. Forget about the whole of the world, which is absolutely important. But in India, we have 90,000 people dying every year. And almost 70,000 of them could be saved every year. Just all you need is a nice test which can detect early. So even if it is affordable, accessible, and maybe as good as the other tests, that's fine, right? So we said, okay, that is also still helpful. So basically to put the right pitch to actually raise funds. So that was one thing. And then comes, you start building, make it look like a product, and, you want somebody to use it, because how do you know it's actually working? So can you imagine somebody going to a hospital and say, here is my new tool, please use it and screen for cancer. And we're talking about cancer, which is a life and death situation. So imagine the first doctor who would say, yes, what are the questions and how many number of hours, of grilling of the idea itself that, we would have gone through. So that was the next thing. Convincing the doctor to say that, yes, please allow us to use it on some of the patients so that we will tell you that our test is good, or you yourself can figure out whether it's good or good enough rather. And so thankfully, there are certain structures in healthcare called clinical trials. So we actually went through the normal process of doing without giving the report to the end user. Thankfully, it had no side effects, right? I mentioned no radiation. So they agreed. And so they agreed to send patients who were coming to mammography. Before going there, they would come to our test. So they actually did the grilling, evaluation. And they were pleasantly surprised. And I have this Dr. Sudhakar I can mention first time. I'm sure this is not going to work, but you can try it on my patients, And after 4 months down the line, he said, your tool is telling she's positive. Let's call the patient back. And that was my graduation, right? Within 3 to 4 months, he was actually trusting the test to call back a patient whom he had said was not cancerous. And of course, it was proven and so on. So it's been a sort of, pretty many such hurdles that come in. But as long as first you're willing to sort of adapt if required, your idea, not very stubborn, but look at the customer problem and see, okay, are we actually, for example, right, people were very shy to disrobe. Then I said, can I just put a curtain in between? Because there is a thermal screen and there's a laptop and there's enough space in between. So we put a curtain and it magically changed the adoption because it was a no see, no touch solution. Nobody, it's absolutely private solution. So like this, as long as you're willing to learn on the ground and you're convinced that you do have a solution, and you make sure that the end user is never affected in a wrong way, essentially benefited if possible. I think with the determination, passion, and God's will, you will get the first POC. But getting that minimal viable product is absolutely important, right? Once you have that and you know it's working, then you know that you are onto something, and it's about making it better and better.
Thank you, Dr. Geeta. And Joe, I mean, you spoke about actually your empathy for the problem came from your own bouts of fighting depression, like you said, and I'm from failures before. So there's this sense of the theme of failures that I'm seeing across the board, at least from Srinath and you. I mean, it'd be great to hear from you. How did you this time? How did you get it from 0 to 1 this time? What was different this time? And what are the lessons you learned from the previous ones where you thought you didn't succeed?
So actually, as Geeta was talking, I was thinking my journey was so different, primarily because I had lost faith in my own ability to lead people to success. So, 20 years of actually innovating crazily again within organizations, trying to solve for world problems, and then you do your own startup, and family, friends, folks who have respected your work for 20 years give you money because they believe in you. And we did something for AI in caregiving, and the ideas time had not come. There was no product market fit. 20-year-olds seemed to be being able to crack Facebook marketing, and I could not. And so traumatized was I with Facebook marketing that and my inability to crack it, that I think today 2.4 million users, not a single one has come out of paid marketing. So it's all organic. So for me, I actually came out of saying, I know that I'm probably going to fail at no matter what I do. I was convinced in my depression that everything I had ever done was a failure. I had just sold a story to the world. And the whole imposter syndrome was, full on. And with that, at some point, this thought came, which is, if I have to fail, then I might as well fail trying to do something big. And I mean, like putting a rocket to the moon, right? I met Team Indus guys who were trying to put this rocket to the moon. And I was like, yeah, they might fail too. But it's okay failing trying to do that. I don't want to fail trying to do Facebook marketing. So I just decided that, and because I was in depression and I had understood, I had a good idea of what I wished had existed. I just said, I'm going to solve for mental health. It wasn't that I'm going to build a mental health product. I'm just going to solve mental health globally. And I put the aim that high. And my entire journey has been, I went back to my investors and said, okay, take your money back, or I'm trying to solve for mental health. And they said, well, Alok, who was in the previous session, one of these wonderful angels who just said, we believed in you, not in the idea. So go ahead if you're going to do this. And at some point, I think that authenticity you have to walk the journey with, to say you're solving that problem and you may or may not succeed. And there are people who are willing to do that with you. For me, the validity that this is working came from users who found us by themselves, because I had not, but even till date, I say I'm not going to sell a story. I want the market to tell me that this is actually working. I don't want to be the one telling the market it's actually working.
Thank you, Joe. I get reminded of this Mike Tyson quote that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? I mean, doing a startup is a bit like that. We all come with fancy ideas, and not you, Joe, because you already thought you were going to fail. But I think most others have this, what I see as an incredible optimism before they start, and then suddenly reality hits and everything changes. So Srinath, maybe, I mean, given that you at this stage you have crossed the 0 to 1, you're going to the moon literally, right? So what is that one piece of practical advice you wish you had received when you were starting out, and that might help some of the entrepreneurs that are, or budding entrepreneurs that are there in the audience today?
So it's hard to pick one. I'll try at least my favorite, not necessarily the most relevant, but at least my most favorite. So probably there's a bit of subjectivity there. This is actually a quote that I saw this movie. It's called The Pursuit of Happiness with a Y there. I don't know how many of you have seen it. A wonderful movie to watch. And I actually strongly resonated with the character there, because it also had, like, at least the protagonist there he also is a person in finance, right? And he was trying to do something in finance, and that is when I actually saw it. So for some reason, I really very connected very strongly with that. And there is this scene in the movie where his kid is actually trying to basket a basketball, and he's really young kid, I think 2-3 years old or something, or 5 years old, and he's not able, and he does it once, and his dad, who's played by Will Smith, actually comes and says, "You should just stop doing this. You're only going to be as good as I am." And then later on, he realizes he just did a mistake, and he just said, you should never let someone tell you can't do something. People usually tell you that because they can't do it, and they assume that means others also can't do it. I wish I had heard that before. I don't think it is never that dramatic, right? It's not like you see one scene in one movie and then suddenly your whole life changes. Obviously, that happens only in films. But I do think there are these moments where you're already building up to this moment where just waiting for it to burst open. And then there is one thing you hear and things change for you. A sort of thing that was one of the things, basically to tell me that it's okay to not be afraid and just go and do it. It's fine. Like, you don't need to be worried about failure. I actually had whatever Joe was mentioning before. I actually told myself the exact same thing. I'm 30 now, probably a little late to change careers. At least in my peer group, everyone was like getting promoted in their own other careers, and I was here like going to go something and do something that I did not even have experience in. And I told myself the same thing. Okay, I'll give it 10 years. I'll do something, solve something in space, make space a little more reachable for everyone. And when I'm 40, if I am not there, that's still okay. At least I won't regret that, I wasted my 30s, right? So that was definitely the thought that came, but it was propelled by this thing that, you should, even if people give you opinions on whether something is okay or not, I think you should be able to have the independent mindset to say, I believe in the vision, and I will be able to keep peer opinion or whatever social opinion at a distance and still do what I think is right. I think that helped me a lot, and that is what I want to share.
Thank you, Srinath. Dr. Geeta, there's a audience question for you, which is on the general availability of the breast cancer screening test, as well as the sensitivity and specificity of the test. So if you want to venture that answer, that'll be great.
Sure. It's so nice to hear some deep questions also from people. Yeah. The test is available in 14 cities today, and we've done about 35,000 screenings in India, and we have recently partnered with Apollo Clinics. So wherever Apollo Clinic is, it's available, but definitely Bombay, Mumbai, Delhi, Hyderabad, Chennai, Bangalore, Mysore, Pune. So any of these places, it's available. And also, because of COVID, women are not walking into hospitals for non-critical care. So we have launched home screening. So this is the only cancer screening or only breast health screening that's being done at home. And so people can just come to our website, niramai.com. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to market. And, just book a home visit, and our team will call you guys and do it. Yeah, please. And by the way, this
Dr.
is
Geeta, so the question is also on the sensitivity and the specificity of the test. And
yes.
My own question is it FDA approved as well?
I'll talk about it. So I just to sort of complete, right? So this October is a breast cancer awareness month. So my request is, please go and talk to your mother, sister, aunt, anybody, and then tell them about how to do breast cancer, self-breast examination and so on. So just sort of Google or come to niramai.com, you'll find a lot of information for that. So in terms of sensitivity, specificity, the first thing we wanted to do was to actually compare with the existing methodologies. I'm glad to mention that, this is published information in American Society of Clinical Oncology journals. We do have 100% sensitivity for asymptomatic people for screening where there is no major symptom and so on, and with a 94% specificity, which is actually pretty good. And it works, this is true for under 45 or above 45. However, when there is a lot of symptom and several sort of, complications, we do have about 94% sensitivity, because that is the place where you will have more than one test being used as a final decision-making for treatment. So that was a question, right?
FDA.
FDA approval. We are currently in India, We are approved by the Indian FDA called CDSCO organization. We are on our path to US FDA. We, in fact, have submitted for even European CE mark, which we're expecting the auditors to come anytime next week. We have not given the exact date. So once the European thing is done, we've already had 2 major discussions with the US FDA. Initially, they were extremely skeptical. You can imagine, right? The US is the most, paranoid, if I can use the word, right? So they don't want anything else to come in, right? Which is for the good of the patients. So the first one was a very hard thing where there was a huge interview going on, so on, with a lot of information given and written documentation given. The second one was a wonderful discussion where they've given us a 25-page small suggestions as to what else we should be doing. So it is going well. The US FDA is there for the device, but for the end-to-end solution, when we go to the US market, we'll be ready with that.
And Joe, maybe I have other question too, but before we go there, since considering it's recommended by NHS, the AI chatbot, does it also need some sort of a FDA or CE type of approvals to be used, or could you just tell us about what are the regulatory hurdles there?
If we were to make a medical claim that somebody with depression would get cured or diagnosed, then yes. So for instance, Dr. Geeta is doing screening and that's a medical claim, then yes. But in our case, we're trying to create something for everybody. And it doesn't actually provide a diagnostic, it provides support. So that emotional support, you don't have to be clinically depressed in order to get. You just have to be going through a difficult time, or you just want to work on your own well-being. It's more a gym and a trainer than it is a hospital. And in fact, that's the place where mental health happens. It happens at 4 a.m. when you're unable to sleep and you've got negative thoughts going in your head. So within that, there is no medical regulation, but we found that from a clinical safety point of view, we felt that we have to be protected, because tomorrow if there's an incident and they say that, hey, I used Wiser, it didn't help me, so Wiser is the name, it makes you wiser. And so I used Wiser, it didn't help me. Then what we did was we followed a regulation for things that are non-clinical, but a device that is used in a clinical setting. So like a web chat forum, etc. So it's called clinical safety regulation in the NHS in the UK. DCBO 129 is the standard. So we proactively went and followed that. So we are on clinical assurance. We're now rated as #1 AI app in the world because we're the only ones doing that. Because it's not required, but I think it's really important from an ethics point of view to go ahead of regulation in things like this. Because regulation tends to catch up once there's an incident. You want to be ahead of it a little bit in terms of your assurance.
Yeah, okay, great. And my next questions is for all of you. This is about failure. We all talked about failure a little bit. And one of the things that struck me was Nicholas Nissim Taleb once said that shaming a risk taker for losing money is like shaming a soldier for losing a limb. So failure is okay, and I think losing money is also okay. But failure also shapes what we eventually become. So describe a failure that has really shaped you. I mean, Joe, I think you already sort of given some sort of an answer to that, but would love to hear some more. And Srinath and Dr. Geeta, please feel free to answer that as well.
Should I just start?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So this failure of not being able to, normally failure is quite easy for me. For me, the part of the failure that really shaped me was the fact that I had taken other people's money for the first time. So normally you go into a college, you're like, I'll quit my job. It's okay. I'll figure out what to do. But when you take people's money, having a failure that you feel obliged to succeed, and middle class people like me with no entrepreneurial background don't see any difference between equity and debt. And, you've taken somebody's money, you feel obliged to give it back. And that kind of failure where it feels like a question of your reputation, that can be quite traumatic. And I think going forward, it shaped me very fundamentally. It shaped me to say that actually I no longer needed to be right. For some reason, that fundamental thing that, I don't know, we go to engineering college and we're rewarded for being right. right? It's one thing to fail or succeed, but I'm just saying that I don't have to win an argument. I don't have to be right. I don't have to convince you. Actually, if I learn something, if I'm proved wrong, that is more likely to make me succeed. In my depression, I think that's what it changed in me, because I really got afraid of being right in an argument after that. And actually, the market will prove me wrong, because I had convinced everybody that this would succeed. So after that, if somebody could convince me that I was wrong, I was very grateful. In that way, it shaped me. And I think that made me a better manager, a better leader, and the product better.
Okay, so maybe in the interest of time, we got 3 minutes. Srinath, I think we'd love to hear what is the next big thing you're working on. What payload are you sending? What satellite are you sending to which part of the world? Which part of the space? Yeah.
Right. I think the first thing is to get to orbit. That is a big milestone for any company like us. Of course, you could scale the rocket, and now India is working on this whole new in-space thing, right, where they opened up private players to directly partner with the government in multiple ways. So there is nothing stopping us from having a SpaceX in India now. Basically, the regulation is open. Now it's up to startups or any private player for that matter to come, take up the risk and take up the challenge and do it. So yeah, moon rockets, human missions, everything is open. The interesting thing about rockets is the first set of tools you build is like a library, and you can just pull in from there, like when you're programming, and then you can build whatever you want after that. So this is just the first step. A small rocket is literally the small step, and then a lot more steps and a lot more goals to achieve.
Dr. Geeta, what's your next big thing, and where do you see the future of breast cancer screening? Do you see this way of doing, dominate the world? What is your aspiration for world dominance?
Yeah, so the technology that we have developed is called thermalytics, thermal imaging and AI, and it's a completely new technology, as I mentioned. And while we were doing the breast cancer screening, we realized that this can actually be used for several other type of cancers, several other type of body abnormalities. For example, in Ghana, we have a Bill Melinda Gates Foundation grant for detecting river blindness, which is sort of, making 50 million people go blind every year in African countries. I don't know whether I should say, thanks to COVID, we realized that, yes, it can actually do some kind of a quick screening for COVID symptoms, like, of course, fever, because it's thermal, as well as respiratory issues. So we have an automated COVID screening solution. So this is the path, right? Just like X-ray, 30 years ago was just used for detecting fracture in your hand or leg, or when you sort of fell down. Now it's used in CT, it's used in mammo, everywhere. I feel we've just scratched the surface. This combination of machine learning and thermal imaging can go a long way in detecting abnormalities in the body. So my dream is to have a box where I enter and I come out and it'll have a report saying like what all are wrong. I know I'm dreaming, but somewhere close by if we go, I think it's completely non-invasive, affordable, accessible, and all that good stuff. So if we can get this done without touching or seeing the person, I think it'll be a great preventative care.
Thank you, Dr. Geeta. That's very inspiring. Joe, and given that everyone needs a shrink, we all need a shrink. We all have mental health issues, and especially in this pandemic, what is the best way to get Visa? Can everybody just download the app? And what's the next big thing that you're working on?
So right now, everybody can download the app, and 99.9% of our users are free. So in B2C, that's our sustainable social impact. B2B is where we make our money. So people can just get it. What we're working on is taking it way beyond, it's right now text chat. So it's going into multiple languages and it's going into voice. So then you start really having an experience where it's already got on Android, we've already started piloting voice. And with the government of India, we've been looking at Hindi. So they're trying to, but the real ambition is not the tech features. The real ambition is if we can address negative self-talk. If in a family, we know how to respond to somebody who is feeling bad. Because Visa responded like that to us. Now we know how to respond to somebody else. That kind of social change is what we're aiming for. And not saying that you need a shrink, but really right now families who use it say that, oh, you need to talk to Wiser. But we want them to be able to respond to somebody who's saying, I'm upset, without giving them opinions, but saying, tell me more about it, what is bothering you? And it's okay to feel upset.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Srinath, Dr. Geeta, Joe, for this awesome session. It's very inspiring. I'm grateful for your insightful comments, and I hope, and I'm sure you have inspired quite a few people here to take on entrepreneurship and change the world. So on that note, I'll hand it back to Pallavi. Thanks, Pallavi.
Thanks a lot. Really enjoyed.
Joe, Srinath, for being such a passionate and inspiring panel. Your stories are really going to show the path to a whole generation of tech entrepreneurs. Many of them are in the audience. Thank you, Srikanth, for being a terrific host who really helped the audience make the most of the last 45 minutes. We really appreciate all of you making the time. You're welcome to stay on if you'd like. In the run-up to the next session, we have a question here for the audience, which you will see on your screen shortly. So the question is, which of these startups were started together by college batchmates? The options are Ola, Practo, Amazon, all of the above. It's a multiple choice question. We'll give you 30 seconds. All right, 37% said Ola, 57% said Practo, 14% said Amazon, and 29% said all of the above. Okay, so the right answer is Ola and Practo. All of these are really exciting stories. Do go ahead and look them up, read more about them. Moving on to our final session for this evening by a very illustrious speaker, Arvind Gupta, on Biotech, a $100 trillion opportunity. This session is hosted by Neeraj Agarwal, who is the chairman for Asia Pacific at Boston Consulting Group and a member of the executive committee. He oversees BCG's business in Australia, China, India, Japan, South Korea, and Southeast Asia. Neeraj is very passionate about using technology to leapfrog development and large-scale change in India. Neeraj is also a founder and trustee of Plaksha University. Welcome, Neeraj, and over to you to open the session and introduce Arvind Gupta.
Hi, good evening, everybody, and good morning in case people are joining from a different time zones, of course. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be introducing Arvind. Arvind, I'm really looking forward to hearing you. Personally, I've read about things you've done. I've heard about you a lot from Urshit, but I've not had a chance to meet you, so I'm personally super excited. Just to introduce Arvind very quickly, he's a frequent speaker at, TEDx/Tech Crunch Disrupt, many places, Future Food Tech, etc. He's been quoted widely in many media publications. But what I'm super excited to welcome Arvind about is his role as the founder of IndiaBio, in which he's created one of the world's leading science accelerators. He's been a pioneer in evangelizing the possibilities in the area of biotech. Arvind, I believe you've done more than 100 plus investment in companies. Last count I heard was 136. I don't know, the number may be changing every passing day.
No.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
And this is in the topic of defining human and planetary health, which is so pertinent for us. And Arvind has very recently joined Mayfield and co-leads Mayfield's engineering biology practice. So Arvind, we are all super excited. I can say that for myself, I can say that for the audience. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you. And then after that, I'll have a few questions for you, and perhaps our audience will also have some questions. So we'll use the time for that.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be able to speak with all of you and share the vision and share what biotechnology is capable of and how it can actually help our planet and help our societies. So let me go ahead and share a presentation. So just give me 1 second here to.
Absolutely.
All right, can everyone see that?
Very well.
Excellent. So yeah, Niraj, thank you so much for that introduction. Today, I'll just share with you some learnings from IndieBio and how biology can be applied to numerous world problems, including healthcare, as is traditionally done. But I want to start with why, and it's because we're running out of time. This is a photograph from the National Geographic from Australia at the beginning of this year, just before the pandemic went worldwide. If everyone remembers, there were forest fires out of control in Australia, sending all the animals to the hospital and killing wildlife. And those fires have actually now spread to California, where I live. And people are running around California and Oregon trying to escape the smoke. And smoke from the California fires have recently reached New York. So climate change is becoming very, very real. And it's becoming something that people can actually feel, and it's affecting their lives personally. This was a screenshot from early on, probably March, June timeframe of the pandemic of COVID-19 spreading across the world. The pandemic is not an isolated phenomenon. The pandemic happened because bats, who normally harbor the disease and normally are out of the way of humans, are getting more and more encroached on by people, slashing and burning down their habitats. This stresses out these bats. These bats then express the virus and get sick. And then at that moment, because humans are in their habitats, you could have a crossover event. So this pandemic is just a sign of more to come as we continue to exploit the environment in the way we're doing. This is also another National Geographic photograph of the glaciers in Greenland and in the Arctic actually melting away. I was recently down in Patagonia in the Morenas Glacier, where we were actually watching glaciers fall off of, or icebergs fall off the glacier in real time. My wife is from Iceland, and we went back to Iceland a couple of years ago. And 15 years ago, when I first started going, the ice in the bays have noticeably gone down. And here's the most shocking thing for me. In recent years, life expectancy in the United States has actually gone down. We have always taken it as a given that technological progress moves up and to the right, and that we only get better and better and better. It's almost impossible to think of a world in which we regress as a society, because we've never experienced that before. But history has. And so we are at a crossroads, and it's because all of this is happening because of the debts we're starting to pay for the past 200 years of consumption in order to feed the desires of a society coming out of poverty. And society coming out of poverty is not a bad thing. That's a wonderful thing. And so that's a dilemma that's actually being presented to the world today. If we have the same amount of GDP growth, the impact on global resources over the next 25 years, just adding 2 billion people or lifting 2 billion people out of poverty would spike coal extraction, double meat production, pulling trillions of fish out of the ocean. Plastic production goes way up, and we have to cut down millions of more trees while we're adding more CO2 to the atmosphere. This is unsustainable. And so we need a new way. We need action. And out of all the technologies that exist in the world, only biology is unique in that it can actually rebalance the energy equation of production, so we can produce what we need for a growing planet and still have a planet that we can rely on, that we haven't destroyed. But it's not like apps, right? It's not And it's not as easy as learning some computer code, you know, in a 2-week program or 3-week program and off the shelf, no code your way to a solution. We need scientists working on these big problems. Rebalancing the equations of life right now are still more complex than very simple problems. So we need more and more scientists, and that's one of my missions. And biology is the only technology that could create surplus, as I was talking about. Allow us to take what we have and actually create more with less. And that is a remarkable, it's a remarkable quality of this technology, because that allows us to actually become a sustainable species. And so when we think about the way we factory farm our food in order to make it affordable in the United States and the Western world, and the amount of resources required is just not going to be something that we can do for the next 50 to 100 years. And everyone with kids that are under the age of 10 feel that very acutely. And so the picture on the right is Plenty's vertical farms, and just looking at new ways of obtaining what we need to feed our planet, but with a smaller ecological footprint. And that's going to be not just a nice to have anymore. It's going to be a must have, because consumers are going to demand it. And here's the thing. The global GDP doubles every 25 years. It was $100 trillion. It grew $100 trillion in the last 25 years. And we know it will grow at least another $100 trillion in the next 25 years. Every single one of these industries on the right will need to be reinvented. The means of production for all of them will need to be reinvented in order to continue the sustained growth. And so therefore, we have a $100 trillion opportunity ahead of us. And this is the greatest entrepreneurial opportunity in history, because it's going to be consumer driven. This is not a technology driven revolution. Consumers will demand change because they feel the forest fires. They feel oceans rising. They feel these effects. And so for the first time, people are paying premiums for change. Beyond Burger went public. That stock is up 3 or 4 times its original price. Tesla, same thing. And so you can see that if you can reinvent production to be better for the planet, you will attain better multiples in the public markets as well. People will want to buy your stuff over everyone else's. And so, like I was showing you on the right-hand side, there's all these different industries. Biotechnology for the past 50 years has been applied to one industry, maybe 2. And that is healthcare and some industrial enzymes. Biotechnology has now exploded into the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the building materials that we use, how we're obtaining our energy, and creating circular economies. And so I want to share with you the diversity of the new biotechnology through some of the companies we funded. And I'll do one example of each category so we can spend more time in a Q&A rather than me just talking to a screen. So the first category is food, and IndiaBio is well known for investing in many, many, many companies that are disrupting food as we know it today. And so the poster child for all the food companies that we did is Memphis Meats. Memphis Meats is the first commercial cell-based meats company. I and IndiaBio was the first investor in Memphis Meats, and they are making meat without the animal. So instead of growing a chicken or growing a duck or growing a cow and then killing the cow or killing the animal and then harvesting all its muscle and then freezing it or refrigerating it and shipping it to a end grocery store where people go buy it, keep it refrigerated until they consume it. Memphis Meats had the idea of, well, if everyone is just really consuming the muscle, why can't we just grow that muscle as stem cells in a petri dish, in a bioreactor, and then convert those stem cells into muscle, and then make that muscle into a hamburger and consume that hamburger. You don't need to grow the cow anymore. You don't need to grow a sentient being, an animal that's alive, in order to have the food that we need. And in doing so, you eliminate a lot of the resource stress on the planet. You don't need as much water. You don't need as much land, way less methane and CO2 emissions from the cows themselves. So that's exactly what they set out to do, and that's what they did. And Uma Valeti, the CEO, is also an Indian, and came out and really changed how the world thinks about how we can eat food. And so the world's first meatball without the cow was grown 5 feet from my desk at IndiaBio, across a wall into our biosafety level 2 lab in an incubator. And I've tried it, and it's quite good. The big question here is scaling. How do you make now billions of tons of this food in order to be able to sell it around the world? And the remarkable thing about this way of thinking is it's not just removing the cow from the supply chain. It's also removing all the transportation, all the energy for cold storage. You could have bioreactors in the center of a city and have very short distribution. So it's an entirely different way of thinking of the protein industry, and that's what's gotten it to be so exciting. This company is now worth over $500 million and has spawned an industry of over 100 companies trying to do the same thing. Along with food that we eat, we also have to think about the agriculture process of how we grow it. And so when we think about agriculture, we could do things like food for animals and helping them grow in different ways or be safer, new therapies for animals, aquaculture, where we're growing fish and fishing them out of the water. Well, what we do is we feed those fish other fish. So we go fish for fish, get all those little sardines, grind them up, and then give them to the salmon we're farming. So why can't we, like with Nova Nutrients, take carbon dioxide coming off a smokestack and then use that to grow microbes and then feed those microbes to those fish instead? So literally using climate change as feedstock for the food we eat. That's going to be a common theme that you're going to see from the way I and IndiaBio thinks. That's how you rebalance energy equations. BeeFlow is a very interesting company that has trained bees to be able to pollinate more. I didn't actually know this. Apparently, the more pollen that goes into a flower, the bigger that fruit is going to be. And so there's a number of ways to increase yields by doing things the old-fashioned way, just better. But Agracy represents something that I thought you guys would find interesting. And it represents what we think is a moonshot in agriculture. They are genetically modifying rice in order to have it be able to grow in the oceans, in the middle of the Bay of Bengal, let's just say. And we can do that because it already naturally has salt pumping genes in it. What we're doing is just modifying the plant to overexpress those genes, so it pumps way more salt out. And so Agracy right now has demonstrated a proof of concept. And one of the important things is, it sounds crazy when you read it as an application paper, but you look at the science and you say, theoretically, it could be done. It might be very difficult, but we should try. And I think it's an important thing to remember that there are a lot of experts that will tell you how things work or don't work. But until you try, you just don't know. I'll go a little faster here. Fashion and cosmetics. The second thing you can do to help climate change beyond what you eat, change what you eat, is change what you wear. And so I'm very active investing in this category. This is Tinctorium. I chose them because, again, a lot of indigo dye is manufactured in India. It's extremely toxic. It's banned in the United States. It's so toxic. And so it goes to all these developing nations, which is terrible. just outsourcing that externality. So Tinctorium has created a way of fixing indigo enzymatically. And in doing so, it becomes completely clean and completely sustainable. And so I'm extremely excited about them to be able to create a sustainable jeans and fashion line. Durable goods and materials. These are companies that are rebuilding the way we look at things, from Carbix, which is doing cement using, again, waste CO2 streams and fixing that waste CO2 within the carbonates, to plastics that melt in the oceans. But I selected Aviso Myco because they're from India. And they discovered melanin being expressed in a certain fungus that they found in the jungles of southern India. And it's a remarkable fungus, and it's a remarkable molecule. Melanin is, of course, the pigment in our skin, and it soaks up UV rays. The amazing thing about that is now you could make an all-natural sunscreen, but more importantly, for their business model, they could sell it at extremely high prices to aerospace companies that are using it to coat their satellites and airplanes in order to help protect their aerospace products from the sun's UV radiation. That's much lighter in weight. And then utilities and energy. Thinking through economies, we need to be able to produce energy very efficiently. And the best way to do that is to take all the waste we produce, either from that energy source or from the rest of our society, and use that to create more energy and really truly create a circular economy. Electroactive is a company out of the Oak Tree National Lab, which is where the nuclear reactor was invented in the United States. And they have invented a bioreactor that uses living electrogens, bacteria that can fix electricity in essence, to create an electrical gradient that they use to drive hydrolysis, the breaking up of H2O, into hydrogen gas. And that hydrogen gas could then be collected and used to power buses, municipal buses, municipal forklifts, things like that. And so there's a full circular economy that comes from collecting people's organic waste streams and using that to create these combustible gas driven clean vehicles. And then finally, healthcare. Healthcare is such a massive industry in and of itself. We've done a lot of investments in it, as you can see, but I will choose to share with you Convalesce. And I choose Convalesce because, again, they came out of IIT as an undergrad and went on to do their PhD in India as well. And Shubhadeep invented a gel that holds stem cells into place and it tricks those stem cells into believing they're in the brain. And when those stem cells believe in their brain, they differentiate into neurons. They then take this little plug of gel and neurons and stick it into the substantia nigra, which is this little pocket in the center of your brain that gets destroyed by Parkinson's disease. And by sticking this plug into that little pocket, all the neuronal connections can be repaired, relieving the patient of Parkinson's disease and the tremors that come with it. So this therapy is moving through preclinical, but again, incredible innovation coming out of India. And so all of these companies, right, they seem outlandish, but they create real value. This presentation is already outdated, or I should say the slide is outdated. It's now $3.2 billion is the net value of all of the companies in the IndiaBio portfolio. 5 years ago, none of these companies exist. 6 years ago, none of these companies existed. And so it shows you the incredible traction and the incredible demand for these technologies. But for me, as the founder of IndiaBio, it shows that the idea that scientists could be entrepreneurs is absolutely right. And that was something that everyone rejected prior to IndieBio. Prior to IndieBio, the dogma was scientists are not the entrepreneurs. They invent something in the lab, they stay in the lab where they belong, and then we give that invention to professionals to go turn into a company. I don't believe that, because I believe scientists are extremely creative and very driven by the definition of them being able to achieve what they've achieved. And so if we just trust them, that we could teach them how to build a business, which is what IndieBio does, they can go on to do great things. And that's what's been happening. The other big thing that everyone believes is true, which just isn't, is that biotech is expensive. It's not that expensive. I could order DNA from a website on IDT that looks like Amazon. It add to cart and it comes to me in 48 hours or 24 if I want express shipping. Biotech has completely changed from the 25 years ago when I did it in the late 90s. And so when you have scientists that can learn how to do entrepreneurship and biotech that isn't that expensive, i.e. failing is not expensive, you could now take on different risks and you can look at biology beyond therapeutics, which was the third thing that everyone believed. Oh, life sciences, that's drug making. Well, no, we can use life sciences to reinvent how we eat, but by lowering the cost of trying that experiment, that is how we could then explore. And like I said earlier, experts will tell you what isn't possible, but nobody knows until you try. And experts have a very strong tendency of being wrong at what they don't know. So building a lab, which everyone can share, was the key of making it cheaper. IndieBio's lab is about 7,000 square feet. It has a BSL 1 and 2 lab, which means you could do infectious diseases. And we have staff to help maintain everything. But really, I talked about the entrepreneurs, and the scientists are the stars and the heroes of the program. And so how do we help them become entrepreneurs? That's a big question. Well, there's a structured program. My background is in design as well as genetic engineering. And so I fuse the two in order to create a program to help scientists be able to build businesses. And roughly it looks like this. De-risking the value proposition in the beginning is the most important thing. Will the consumer want it? 2, once you understand what the consumer wants, you focus on building the product. And then 3, once you build the product, what's the business model? How do you actually give it to people and get paid in a way that maximizes your return for the value you've created? Most people disregard the business model part. And the business model part is the difference oftentimes between success and failure. Because making sure you have a business model that is sustainable and can create large outcomes is what gets investors to come in and invest in biotech companies, which can often be pre-product for a long time. And so broadly, the best practices of building biotech companies is using what I call product-directed discovery. So this is this is an interesting concept. I'll actually say it through an example. Most people will say, oh, okay, if we're going to express a certain, like three different proteins and then mix them together to make a product, most people would start working on all 3 chassis, genetically modifying all 3 bacteria to make those proteins and to get enough of the product to make what their final product wants to be, right? Well, there's a better way than that. Why don't you just buy those purified proteins off the shelf and then formulate until you're certain that the final product is what your customer wants? Once you know that for certain, you could now spend the time and energy in creating the cellular factories to make those products. And so not thinking of everything as a science project, but thinking of everything as a product development program. By reprogramming our minds in that way, we can get to better products faster. And that's what allows you to do this. And this is something that I say all the time in the basement. The basement is where the IndiaRTI lab's in a basement. And so I say sales solves everything. If you have a problem, go make a sale, right? Some investor doesn't want to give you money, go make a sale. And here you can see we have a very strong focus. It's an 18-week program. At week 16, Amaryllis finally figured out how to sell product and made over $250,000 of real sales and $375,000 of bookings. So getting to that revenue is the best proof point that your company has a product that people want. So what's next for the world? Well, at IndiaBio, we're working, and now at Mayfield, I'm working really hard to look for technologies that are using carbon capture to reverse climate change. I mentioned a couple: Carbix, making cement; Novo Nutrients, using carbon capture to feed fish. So what are all the different ways we can use carbon that we're capturing in order to reverse this climate change and sequester it away from the atmosphere? How do we create new food supplies to feed our planet without destroying it? Everyone deserves to have good, high quality food. People coming out of poverty, the first thing they would demand, it's well documented, is high quality protein. How do we do that sustainably? I believe fertility and birth control, that whole segment is really about gender equality. And over time, contraception and fertility technologies have led to greater and greater freedom for women. And as we continue looking at how to have healthier children at the time of our choosing, we create a more equal society and a better society. And how do we eradicate disease with lower cost approaches? It's not just about super expensive CAR T therapies in the United States for a select few people, right? That's not what interests me as a person, right? I think that's important, but real success comes when you can distribute medicines and therapies to everyone in the world in a way that everyone can afford it. That's truly world changing. Likewise, what are some regenerative approaches, to eliminate even surgery? I think in 200 years, in 100 years, 50 years, hopefully, if I'm optimistic, we'll look back and we'll say, can you believe people used to be cut open in order to fix what's wrong inside of them? The same way we think back to the 1200s. Oh yeah, we used to cut holes in people's heads to bleed them out in order to make them feel better. We laugh about that now. What are the things about our current healthcare practice we'll laugh about one day? It's very humbling for me to think that way. Sustainable materials and production. I've talked about this a lot, but this is Lingrove. That's not wood. That's flax. It was spun, woven, and turned into something that people can put on their walls and feel good that they're not contributing to climate change. I talked about the bats. I'm a big fan of bats now, as I've learned about them. And they are a true link between human and planetary health. And so for me, thinking about biodiversity as a metric, as much as CO2 is a metric in people's minds, people aren't talking about biodiversity on the planet. We need this biodiversity to keep us safe from climate change. As we all know from the meteor, the more specialized we are to an environment and the more narrow the diversity of the planet, when the planet changes, those brittle species die very fast. And biodiversity is the only thing that can ensure from that change. And then finally, the ocean covers 70% of the planet and yet is owned by nobody. And so therefore is nobody's problem. And that is probably one of the biggest problems with our planet today. The majority of life on the planet is under the ocean. And the ocean is acidifying very rapidly. It's also the biggest CO2 sink on the planet. And so how do we go and save coral? And how do we actually understand how to address the issues that are happening in our ocean, in our oceans around the world? in a way that's collective, because this is the sneaking problem that's going to come up on everyone before it's too late, because no one's really looking, since no one owns them. And then finally, along those lines, and I think this is something that's very important for India, especially, is clean water for everyone. It's it's just remarkable how much we take for granted clean water in the West. I go hiking and backpacking a lot. And so, whenever you just can't turn on a faucet, get clean water, you go and appreciate it. And I think this is a basic need that, like freedom, everyone should have. And so we should work hard to understand it. So that's what I am working tirelessly for. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen more to this kind of stuff, you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at Arvind Gupta. I just wrote a book called Decoding the World. I just knocked over a lamp as well, and I should have had this. I should have had the book handy, but I don't. Classic. Anyway, Decoding the World, you could go out and get it. And it's about a lot of the things that I just talked about through many of the examples I talked about. So I'll stop sharing and I'll say thank you very much for listening.
Arvind, that was truly awe-inspiring.
Thank you.
If even a fraction of those things go to scale, we'll be living in a very different world, and I'm assuming chances are many of them will go to scale. So look, I was tracking the questions from the audience, so I want to pick 3, and maybe we take shorter answers to these questions so that we can get more through as well.
That would be great. I can do rapid fire for you.
Yeah, I mean, so you talked about climate change as feedstock. That'll be, I track climate change and this 2 degrees centigrade increase and net zero. So can that truly be done at scale? Because that can be incredibly revolutionary. Or how far are we from doing that at scale?
We're getting closer, faster. I mean, unfortunately, CO2 is being emitted at scale. And so we just
for a long time.
So we just need these traps, and these traps are happening. It's chemistry. This is stuff that is engineering. It's not basic science. So it's scaling very, very quickly. The thing that takes a long time are people's minds to change. And then once people change their mind, the technology happens very quickly.
Because that can truly be, okay, great. There was a question about, is this more, you gave a bunch of examples which were relevant for India, being done by folks in India. But do you think, and you said your lab is 7,000 square feet and it's got all, all the whatever approvals, etc. Do you think this is something which is going to be more the prerogative of the West in the short term, or do you think India and other emerging countries can truly do this at scale as well?
No, India and other countries can do this at scale far faster. I mean, this is the thing. There's incredible talent in India. This is why I'm so excited for Plaksha. I'm very excited in general for India and want to come back and help build some of these things as best as I can, because the talent in India is, and the creativity of Indians is such that it doesn't take, like I said, it just takes a frame of mind. The rest is easy. Once you know, okay, let's try. It's not about failing big, it's about failing little, right? That's what I mean, right? Like failure it's funny, in England, in Britain, it's all about your accent, who's your family. In New York, it's all about your resume, where did you go to school? In California, in San Francisco, it's all about what have you done, right? So in India, like what I say about mind shift change, right? How do we get to, it's all about what you've done as fast as possible, because then everyone's not afraid of trying something, because trying something is as important, or if not more important, than what university did you go to.
So you're saying it's really a mindset issue. There is no threshold of, it needs cleaner labs, it needs a certain enabling environment, none of that stuff. It
needs a kitchen. It needs a kitchen. You could do this, 90% of what I talked about, you could do literally in your kitchen. You don't need a lab. I built a lab.
Or the DNA that the genome sequence you can order on the cart. Can you do that anywhere?
Yes. Yes, in India, right? Type it in, IDT. There's services everywhere for it. Illumina sequencing, almost so much of it is outsourced, right? So it takes a frame of mind and creativity more so than a pipette. And I think that's just something to really internalize, because as you know, my dad used to always say to me, right, growing up, when there's a will, where there's a will, there's a way. Yeah, right.
There's a highway, as they say. Where there's a will, there's a highway.
So that's all. I think that's the key. And once you have the mind shift, and it's not all about like, oh, okay, I can't fail because it'll go on my record, right? That I tried something and it didn't work. It goes on my record. Oh no. That doesn't matter.
That bit is beginning to happen a fair bit. Yeah. I mean, we've had, so I'm also curious, what's the genesis of the company being called IndiBio? It's just.
So IndiBio is short for independent biology. So I started it as the third wave for biologists. So in the beginning, there was either you could become a professor, right? And there's no professorships left because no one's retiring. Everyone's living forever. And then you could go like work for Genentech and, do pipetting like a human robot. And, neither of those are very appealing for anyone creative. So what I called IndiBio, called it IndiBio as independent biology.
Got it.
For you to be able to do it on your own. And so that's what I mean. Like the lab I built was done for shoestring budget, $250,000 for the first one, which is nothing. If you know about building labs, everything is bought secondhand, cheap. You have to rebuild a motor here and there, which we did.
No, so there's one more question which comes up when you listen to a topic like this, when you talk about stem cells, etc. While there's a lot of good you can put this to, is it also putting too much power in the hand of humans? And there's a side of it which is not so good. And how do you, as I hear about COVID, you could also say that the same pandemic could be created by 3 guys in a lab, or whatever, if they wanted to put their mind to bad use. I'm not, do you subscribe to that? Do you think there need to be enough checks and balances in this incredibly potent tool that mankind will have with itself?
It's a great question. A couple million years ago, there were some guys in a cave, some people in a cave, and they were like, this fire thing is going to be big, right? Like fire is really great, but it's dangerous, could burn stuff down. And it's like, fire is hot. Should we keep fire from everyone else? Right? This is a technology that can revolutionize the way we live and all of this. Like I've mentioned, in the same exact way, it's not as dangerous as people think. People just don't understand it yet. We don't think fire is dangerous anymore because we could control it and we understand. Like one of the first things kids learn, don't touch a stove, it's hot. Like, okay, done. And so it's incredibly hard for 3 guys in a basement to make a deadly pathogen. It's almost impossible. You can't order the genes for pathogenic diseases. Everything is flagged on databases. There are a lot of safeguards in place. And it's really hard to do. Like entire states, like nations, put hundreds of millions of dollars of resources to developing something like that. With all their means of disposal, 3 people in a basement, it sounds like a good movie, but unfortunately it's not a movie that's realistic.
Got it. No, that's very helpful and very encouraging to hear. One more question which is coming up. How many of these companies that you mentioned, great stories, are beginning to be cash flow positive, or is the cycle to become cash flow positive typical as other startups? Is it less? Is it more? How would you characterize it?
Great question. So they take a lot longer to be cash flow positive. In the planetary health, what I call planetary health, which is all the companies that are good for the planet versus human health, all the good, companies that are trying to solve for healthcare, they tend to get to cash flow positive earlier. So many of our companies on that side are profitable and able to sustain themselves. Others could be profitable, but they're taking venture capital to grow faster. On the human healthcare side, diagnostics, things like that. We have companies that are making, well, I have a COVID diagnostic company that's making millions of dollars a month. And so again, it's about having an idea, seeing a hole in the market, and then going after it. You know, the COVID diagnostic company saw that the PCR test that everyone was using could be simplified into fewer steps and just go faster. And so then they just offered that. And then San Francisco turned around and said, hey, can you help us deploy testing? So it's about being fast in your mind. The rest is just doing, right? And I think, you know, I keep overemphasizing this idea of we are products of what we believe we can do. And I think like that's the most important hurdle. You know, in the book I wrote, there's a line that I use to talk about this, which is 99% of censorship is self-censorship.
Arvind, this has been an incredibly inspiring session, and you know, truly, you know, and such exciting examples from growing rice in the Bay of Bengal to indigo manufacturing, denim. I know the largest denim manufacturers are in India. I know a couple of them, and they talk about how polluting it is for the water. Yes. Because that's why they don't make denim anywhere else in the world, and that's why it gets manufactured. So that, if you're Tinctinium, if I caught that name right, you know, that's.
Oh, Tinctinium is now called Hue, H-U-E. And I will check them with you because it's an important, like I had India in mind when I invested in them.
Yeah, it can be incredibly important. Yeah, I mean, and then making cement and other durable things out of carbon. Connell says, Parkinson's disease, boy, this is like a whole new world. So I can go on and on. I'm just conscious of the time, and I would, I don't know if you had any closing comments to make, but Decoding the World, thanks for the plug on that. I'm sure we will all go on to read it. And at Plaksha, we are incredibly excited. We are offering this as a major in the very first year, the whole biosystems engineering, and we are excited about the possibility that exists. But if you had any closing words to say to the group, would love to hear you.
Sure. You know, I think again, you know, to a group of incredibly gifted and thoughtful people, I think about my work through my tombstone. You know, one day I'm going to die, and then all the companies that I've invested in will go on that tombstone. And just by that, you will know who I am as a person. In the same way, when you're making a decision, for me, that's an important or a helpful framing, because one day I can look, it allows me to think long-term, right? And make decisions today based on 20-year time horizons versus getting caught up in the turbulence of the moment. And so my wife and I, we have a rule we call the 20-year rule, which is when we're trying to decide, should we do something? Should we move to China for 3 years, or should we stay here and work on our careers? We both said, well, what do we remember in 20 years? What will we remember? And so we're like, oh, we'll remember going to China. So let's go to China. So, you know, and I think like that's a helpful thing. Like, should we start a company or not? What are you going to remember in 20 years? All the things you learn in that struggle and that growth, you know, it's a no-brainer to me. So that's, you know, I would say think, because all of you are at this inflection point in your life where a lot of big decisions are made within a short amount of time and they set courses, right? So, you know, maybe that could be somewhat helpful from, you know, I don't have any answers. That's the other thing. I only have questions. And so that's hopefully a little bit helpful. It's certainly not an answer to any of life's questions.
As both Socrates and Plato said, having the right question is often the hardest thing. So I think asking questions is good. And the 20-year rule is a good way to live life. So thank you for sharing that as well. I think with that, Arvind will probably bring this to a close and hand it back to Pallavi.
Yes.
I love this. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for inspiring us. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay. I will hopefully speak to you guys soon. I'm sorry, Pallavi.
No, thank you so much, Arvind. That was really, really a fascinating presentation. I think no words would do justice to it. And as you know, the theme of this conference is it's infinity, and you've really opened people's minds to infinite possibilities with biotech, things that nobody would have considered possible, and really encouraging everyone to break boundaries, think about that. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Neeraj, for being a fabulous host, as always. I know how passionate you yourself are on this topic, and it was great to have both of you in this session together.
No, it was incredible fun. Arvind, once again, have a great day ahead, and thank you again for joining.
Okay. Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. And thank you so much finally to the audience. Your questions were just terrific. We were internally discussing on the side that we need to make a note of all of them as well. You really made the discussion even richer through them. You've just been wonderful. For everybody who stayed through the day, thank you for making the time. And with this, we come to the end of the track for today on creating tech leaders for tomorrow. We look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow as well for the last and final track of the Infinity Conference. This track is called Stories Which Inspire. We've actually got off to a great start today already. I'm sure everyone here is very inspired at this moment, and tomorrow it's just going to continue. So we'd love to see you tomorrow again. You'll meet Kiran Sethi, who's a designer, educationist, social entrepreneur all in one. Young entrepreneurs who've built unicorns in India, people who've used technology to make the world a more inclusive place, a 14-year-old who's discovered an asteroid, Sonam Wangchuk, who founded Sekmol Ladakh and really needs no introduction. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. You will receive a calendar invite with the Zoom link shortly. Good evening, good night.